Last meeting was kind of crazy. I was elected chair, and there was lots of people around, lots going on. I didn't get a chance to thank Chrissy for the 2.5 years of amazing service you gave to the committee. So I just want to say thanks for that. And thanks to everyone else for electing me and putting your faith in me. I'm definitely honored. Yeah. Okay, so has everyone had a chance to read through last month's minutes? Anybody have any changes or anything that needs revisions?
Wes, sorry to slow you down already. Let's adopt the agenda first and then...
Adopt the agenda first,
yeah,
okay.
We'll do the minutes.
Motion to adopt the agenda. Matt Parker moves. Chrissy McKay seconds.
Yeah.
Thank you. Would anyone like to, do we need to adopt the last minutes, or we just carry on?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so is there a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting, or are there any changes that anybody feels need to be made? Motion to accept, Chrissy, and Brian seconds. Okay. First order of business, 2020 budget discussion. Capital projects, management projects, and maintenance projects priority list review. I noticed that this 11 by 17 sheet that you sent out also has some estimated costs on here. Is that what the district's?
Yeah, we'll walk you through that in just a moment. But did you first? I think we'll go. So we're quickly going to go through where we're at on the budget to date for this year. There's a budget overview sheet, September 2019, should be in front of you.
Yep.
So we'll give you that quick status update, and then we'll move to the 2020 budget discussion.
Okay, so the operating budget for 2019 was $5,000. A couple of bills that came through from Climon, graffiti remover, some directional signage that was put up for a toilet, and of course the invoice for the East Side Trail. We did wind up in the red there for about $260. The contract services budget for 2019, $24,000. Year-to-date expense, $14,769 for the maintenance end of it. GFL, $1,914.03. The rebar rungs that were done at Lumberland Trail, $1,380, and then maintenance contract to the end of the year is $4,923, which leaves $1,013.97, which actually is spoken for because we still have the remainder of the year for GFL and the porta potties. So
We're right on budget.
we're pretty much right on, yes.
I'm just curiously, what happens to that $260 that we overspent out of the? maybe that can come out of the maintenance budget.
It's not significant enough for us to spend a great deal of time reconciling.
Okay. We'll have to be a little more on top of things, like the fiscal.
Close enough, maybe. So if the committee's okay with that, what we tried to do with respect to the 2020 capital options, that's the 11 by 17. We asked our contractor for suggestions, and that's the sort of the blue panel on the left-hand side with some estimated costs. These are just the suggestions that he's made. We've sort of, in the green panel in the middle, are some costs that we've estimated, sort of looking at the work he's suggesting and maybe conditioning some of those estimates of costs. In some cases we haven't, in some cases we have. There are some notes that we've made around some of those, and then on the right hand side the sort of tan, or what colour it's printed, or what colour you can see the yellowish panel is, trying to connect those things with where they sit in the Smoke Bluffs plan. Now, and Asia has the other sheets, Asia, that...
Yeah, so I actually just quickly printed out the capital priority projects list that was attached to the agenda, as well as the maintenance priority lists and just highlighted the stuff that in the spring of this year we'd gone through these priority lists. And I just highlighted anything that was short-term high, just so you guys would have that front of mind in considering the list that we put forward here. So some of this stuff could come off of this list potentially and go into the budget and the work plan for 2020.
So what we'd like at the end of this discussion is a list, preferably in priority order from the committee, that we can then start to work our way through in 2020. We'll get as far through that list as we can, budget committee. Now one of the items, and Andy, maybe we can speak to this, is it the neat and cool? Is it the second one?
The trail front of neat and cool, BC
Hydro?
Yeah. Yeah. We can actually, for that, I mean, we did discuss that. Parks can go in and tidy that up this year. I think it would be a good idea. Most of that gravel is going to be left with BC Hydro.
They left a bunch there that they didn't need? Okay.
So the idea is to kind of cover up that rock, put a culvert in underneath there, and then now we have no winter issues with that. So
With icing
I think,
out there.
Parks can take that and look after that if you want us to this year. We can do that. So.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, just like a half-meter lift with some fill, and then just a small culvert underneath it with
Once
a
Hydro's
ditch.
done, within a few weeks we'll go in there and tidy that up. So.
Okay.
So that means we can pretty much cross that one off the list for your considerations.
So that was a moderate term
Yeah,
maintenance priority at one point.
Yeah, that's the number, sort of, I should have numbered them, but the second one, the trail road work in front of Neat and Cool, we can essentially cross that one off the list and consider that done. So that leaves the remainder and anything that the committee wants to pull from the management plan to create the list you want to give us. So.
I don't see that one on the maintenance work priorities list. Yeah, and this corresponds to, it says, yes, medium short term in the maintenance priority list, but I don't see it on the list. Am I missing something?
These are suggestions from John.
All these?
I believe so.
Smoke Bluffs plan alignment, maintenance priority, yes. Moderate short term.
Oh, they got the exact language on the right that describes exactly what it is. So it's
Ongoing, oh, it's just part of the
kind
ongoing
interpret-
machine maintenance, okay.
Yeah, it looks like interpretation.
Okay.
We've taken a fairly liberal maintenance capital blending. Just it's work that we want to get done in parks.
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of that. Is it, I mean, it mentions that it's BC Hydro's responsibility. Is there, I mean, it is a safety issue if BC Hydro is allowing people to kind of use their road.
We've had discussion with BC Hydro, and they're willing to leave all the gravel, even give us more if need be.
Okay.
So as long as we go in and do it, so I don't think, it only takes us a day or two just to knock that off, so.
Yeah.
We can do that if you want us to, but I think it's a good idea, it'd be safer in the long run.
Yeah, I think
especially
so.
over the winter time, so.
Does the culvert outlet drain there, where's that going to go then? It's not just going to pool on the flats right there, is it going
No,
to
it's gonna
go?
run down the side, but it'll also be built up, so the water will stay along the edge and not
Okay.
come back onto the trail.
Chrissy?
One thing to consider too is right in front of Neat and Cool, there's a bunch of climbs that kind of border the trail, and you want to make sure to like not pile it up too high so that it affects the start of the climb. And
No, it won't really that high.
okay.
So
Yeah.
would there be, like, that section where it's just rock, that would no longer be rock, it would actually be gravel on top of that rock?
Will that not wash away?
No, I think it'll be high enough, and then we can do some kind of berm on the one side, so it'll all be sloped to one side too, so, and packed and compacted, so.
Because that area is always
Yeah,
trouble.
so it'll be like, kind of like it'll look like when we did the lower part of the trail when we went up, it'll kind of like that, so.
60 centimeters deep or something?
In
Gravel?
that neighborhood, yeah.
A couple feet. So we don't need a motion to council for that. The park's just going to,
We'll cover that one off, but we will require a motion to give us the list at the end of the discussion.
okay. But so this one doesn't need to be on the list.
Correct.
Should Should we just spend some time reading through it and then comment on it afterwards?
So we could do it in terms of like capital or maintenance and like review the capital items first and then decide which ones we want.
Smoke Bluff Summit Trail. Should we maybe leave that one for... Do we want to go through the contractors list, or do we want to go through the work priorities list from the plan? Why don't we just go through the contractors list and see if we want to add them to the plan, and then we can go through the plan and see if we want to delete any or move things up or down. So the first one there, the final section of Trail to Smoke Bluff Summit, requires some hand-built sections, potentially with a small set of wooden stairs. No potential cost, we'll leave that up to the committee. So it's currently a moderate short-term capital priority. This one obviously has some issues around it that need to be well thought out. So currently, I mean, it's a moderate short-term plan for the capital priority. I think it's going to, I mean, in my opinion, it should still be a moderate priority. It just needs a lot more discussion. So, I mean, I don't see any need for moving it higher or lower. Yeah.
Is this in reference to the final section of the east side trail, or is this like a connection to the loop trail to the summit? Like, is that the same thing, or is this something different?
Final section of trail to the Smoke Bluff Summit. That I'm not sure.
My best guess on the interpretation of that would be in the contractor's mind, it was probably to take from the end of where they got to on the east side trail and connect that up to the summit, is my best guess on the contractor.
Okay.
So can we say then that we might just put that on hold until we have a really good plan with that trail? Maybe
Yeah, I mean...
temporary, just no action on it for the time being.
But it does say that we need firm design plans and more exact cost estimates.
Sure.
It does say in the final sentence that we need firm design plans and more exact cost estimates until we get those.
But I think that that's a step beyond what Mike is talking
You think
about,
so?
if I was to guess. Because the design would be actually us, after us having actually decided on what we want that section to be.
Yeah, like whether there's design plans or not, is that what you're saying? Like
You wouldn't do design plans and cost estimates until we actually sort of establish our objectives for that piece.
Right, makes sense. And we don't know those yet.
No.
Then we don't.
Can I just bring something up?
As far as capital projects go, right now it's a high priority short term on the list. Do we want to maybe just drop it down a bit so it just gets a little bit less attention and just kind of let it percolate, and then everyone can kind of bring their ideas to the table and it doesn't have to get brought to the forefront every time?
I'm in favor of that.
Okay,
We
so
can have some more.
It's moderate on the list.
in the capital,
Yeah, it's listed as short-term moderate.
build new east side trail past Grand Dug, crag near the microwave tower.
It's the first
High
yellow
priority.
one in the middle of the table.
And there's one in the middle too, so those ones.
Oh.
Is that the same thing?
No, they must be separate. One is an addition to the loop trail, and the other was an extension to the east side trail past Grand Dug.
In addition to the loop trail near the microwave tower. In addition to the Smoke Bluff Summit. I think those might be the same thing, or is that coming around from the backside loop trail through that Crown land parcel?
There are two sections under consideration. There's that, and there's the contentious one that we've been discussing for some time now, coming up on the east side. So there are two separate sections.
Okay. Is the one from the loop trail start at the kind of the high point of the upper loop and go up?
Yeah,
That way?
Above Octopus Garden High Point.
Okay. We should separate that somehow.
Yeah,
Well-
let's propose making it really clear so that we know which one we're talking about each time, so people don't get upset about it.
Could I
So there's the
suggest-
east side extension and the loop trail extension.
Yeah, that's clear.
Could I suggest that we actually discuss them at the same time? because they don't actually work in isolation from each other,
That we kind of only need one or the other,
probably.
maybe.
I'm
be
I'm not
discussed.
going to finalize that or voice,
I'm just
anything
thinking-
on that except that it should be discussed, I think, together at the same priority
Yeah.
and not as two separate issues.
Okay, should we just make them both moderate priorities then? Okay.
Yeah, for really good future discussion too.
Yeah, so the improvements that I'll make to clarify is that the one will be called the East Side Trail Extension, past Grand Doug Craig, and then we'll say towards the summit or to the summit, and then that's dropping down to moderate priority. And then in the status notes, I'll put further visioning, establish objectives, do more planning around this needed first.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And you can probably call the loop trail extension, which is roughly, call it the north side loop trail extension.
Okay.
We were up, it's like past Stone Hollow, right? So
It comes up
Yeah.
to the north through that piece of that strip of crown and then pull
It's
back
not
in.
really this,
It does, yeah. It's quite lovely.
Can I assume the committee also wants to include more consultation on those routes?
I was going to actually say that it might be a really good idea to do some more consultation. And I think everyone here knows one of my hot buttons is sort of lack of facilities for people to use in the park. So perhaps almost like a carrying capacity study in the park. And I sometimes wonder if we're putting a cart before the horse with encouraging more people deeper into the park. To go backwards on that, I live in the Bluffs. There's human feces everywhere, and every neighbor up there will talk about it. It seems funny to deny it, it's everywhere. So I think probably bathrooms first, carrying capacity plan, and then discussing bringing more people deeper into the park starts to become a great idea. But first, we'll have to have a place to go to the bathroom before we invite more people into the park, is my opinion on it. We can get there though, I think we can, but cart before the horse.
Okay, thanks. Can I suggest that we focus on this stuff and maybe talk about extraneous stuff at the roundtable, just because
Absolutely, Wes.
I'm trying to be done this by 7:30 and we only have 35 minutes left. So, yeah. Are you going to say something extraneous?
The stuff that we're looking at here is basically capital and maintenance, and I wholly agree that we need to do a lot of maintenance. I do question how much more capital and how much more expansion of the facilities we want to actually undertake until we've done things like carrying capacity studies and sort of a little bit more visioning of the park into what the park can stand in terms of visitors. So what we're discussing, I think, almost, again, puts the cart before the horse. Trying to figure out, do our maintenance, but then figure out what can the park actually withstand in terms of visitor numbers and the types of visitors, the types of experiences. And maybe we should put some of our budget towards actually doing studies like that, like BC Parks does. And then we can determine what we actually do in terms of capital upgrades to the parks to plan for those sorts of things. That's why I was kind of like,
Cart before the horse is what you're saying.
yeah, it's great to have this all on the agenda and let's plow through it, but maybe, let's go back up one level before we look at a budget and ideas for the budget.
Is the district willing to put forward some time or human capacity for a carrying capacity study for the park? I could see our meager Smoke Bluffs $5,000 a year budget not going very far when consultants get involved, being a consultant myself.
It's going to be tricky with where we're at right now. Plus, that's a loaded concept that I would need some pretty good clarity on as to what it means, what's the objective. A carrying capacity study means many things to many people, so I would hate to answer the wrong question. So if there's a sense of a clear objective and question or questions, then possibly, but absent that, I'm sort of reluctant to Carrying capacity is a very difficult concept to assess.
Do you guys maybe want to put some thought to what you mean by that and kind of get a succinct motion to council, maybe?
Absolutely.
To kind of just figure out what questions you want to ask and sort of what objectives you want to achieve by the study?
And anyone else in the committee that has feedback on it too, like what things we would like to learn before we push for further development and bring more users into the park. Sometimes, as a resident, I wonder, is the park for residents of Squamish or is it for tourists, or I'm not even sure who it's for. So,
Sarah, maybe last question, then we'll move on to
Yeah, to make it easier, as I'm envisioning potentially, could we throw out any talk about development in one section and a talk about maintenance in another? Because it seems like people are worried about development, but if we're going to ask about like repairing an outhouse and those sorts of things, those seem a little bit less contentious.
yeah.
Could maintenance and development be split so that we don't have to, so we can talk about them in separate ways? Because development needs so much more thought put into it, whereas maintenance is like, okay, are we going to grind off the top of the asphalt, right?
No, I think that's a,
Could we have kind of, because I know how we have envisioned these lists currently, but it's possible that we have a section where we talk about developments, where that's different, right? Because then that involves so much more. Just a thought to make the meeting slightly easier.
and even if it's a capital upgrade to existing infrastructure, that's probably, could be considered, I think, in Gary's language, a slight gray, differentiation between capital and maintenance.
Yeah, I was just going to add the same point. To me, when you look at the list of capital projects that you guys have developed, it's really a spectrum where some of them are like brand new, flashy, significant projects, and others are really more maintenance or just improving what's already there. So it's a spectrum. I think it's obvious that the flashy, big projects we maybe want to back away from, but let's pile through the maintenance end of things right now.
I like that approach.
Yeah, so I don't know if we originally, when we wrote the management plan, had these three tables, but like capital projects is like things that we can't afford right now, like big ticket items, even large high cost maintenance items. I think we had included all that in the capital projects priorities because they were going to be things we would ask the council for. And then all the maintenance work priorities were things we could tackle, and there was the third management priorities, yeah. But yeah, maybe we could split up the capital projects into, or we could. So what were the two tables that you were suggesting, Sarah?
Yeah, just in terms of like the capital in this maybe it's just because these got mixed up in the contractor suggestions, but have maintenance and developments in a separate situation.
Like new developments and sort of maintenance
Maintenance on existing, or
within capital projects.
yeah.
Sure.
It is a bit of a gray area though. Every one I look at is like you could put one or the other, so it's tricky. Because is signage new, or are we talking about the existing? Those sorts of things. So, but it seems like just to make it easier for today, because I guess what I'm trying to get clarity on it is, are we just voting on whether it's the position on its list? Like that's really all we're getting into. We're not getting into like whether we like it, whether it's going to go forward, that sort of thing. It's just how important it is to us.
I think at this meeting we're just going to get the list solidified, right? And so that we can adopt it into the management plan. And then at a next meeting we can kind of go through the list and discuss how we want to implement them.
So the question is it moderate, low, or high? Do we want it at all?
Yeah.
Like A, B.
Well,
We
sorry
don't-
to interrupt, Jeff, but I think we
don't have another meeting until the spring.
Mm-hmm.
We
So
want it
we
prioritized.
need direction from you as to
So
what
tonight's the
we
night?
should be planning to do in 2020. So we do need a list of maintenance, let's say a list of things to do.
Okay, so let's try and at least get high priority on as much as we can that we want to focus on for 2020 tonight. And then everything else can be moderate and low, and then we can kind of move it around as things go. Okay. So far we've downgraded one thing. And Parks has taken on another thing. So we don't have any priorities yet so far.
Which list do you want to
We
work
have
on
our
first?
existing list though.
Yeah. I don't know.
Do you want to go through?
Should we go through our existing list first? Sure. So I'm looking at table 1, capital projects.
Okay.
The first one we downgraded to moderate. So the second one, replace kiosk map, update with revised trail and park boundary after GPS of trails. So I think that should still be a high priority, and it's already underway, and it'll be taken care of just by volunteer labor. Helen Habgood has offered her services again to update it based on our comments. And then Chrissy sent a bunch of comments to this map. I printed it off, so everyone, I think it might be best if everybody kind of puts their own comments on the map and then takes a picture of it and then sends it to like more of a select committee within the group. That way there's only 3 or 4 people working on it rather than trying to everybody sit over Helen's shoulder at the computer, and we can try and synthesize everyone's comments. So could I pass these around? It's the same map that's in the package, this one just has Chrissy's comments on it. So if anyone has additional comments, I can email this out to you if anyone would rather.
Helen had some comments that she wanted to add around the map in that she's going to fix the labels. Currently, the labels are sometimes obscured by the icon, vice versa. So those sorts of minor stuff, don't worry about commenting on that. She's gonna, like for example, Penny Lane you can't quite see, so that will be cleaned up. But it's more in terms of which trails we want to show, which crag, whether we want to show every crag that's listed there and their names, because it gets quite busy. So like those sorts of things is what she was hoping to get from this meeting.
So Helen,
But she said yes, exactly like you said, 1 to 2 people.
yeah, like I'm not trying to take this over, but I think Sarah and I could probably sit down with Helen because we both work with her in the same office. But if anyone else wants to join, they could come and sit down as well.
I think it'd be good if, we sort of provided some input, at least to that northeast corner, to sort of generally accepted map as motorized use area.
Yeah, none of the trails have names, I don't think, on
So, just indicate where they are and which trails should be used.
which ones are defunct. I know Trailforks has that, but I don't think it's very good. We did GPS there, a number of them, just park the trail. Okay. So why don't we get all of our GPS tracks on the map and mark it with names and whatever else.
And I'd like to, just for us, I would only be concentrating in that corner around the FM tower, a little bit down the east side, across the north boundary, but predominantly in that corner. The rest of it, that's not for me to worry about in terms of our sport members.
You mean the ones, like the road ones that go through the middle of the park that only certain people ride?
I don't know what you're talking about.
They're not there.
Well, they're not.
Trailforks actually, sorry Russ, it does actually have a lot of this stuff. It's a useful resource actually, so we could probably overlay that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
But it's
not
on there.
super accurate though, from what I've found up there.
So I want to get you guys out of the weeds. We did have the kiosk map finalization as a separate item, but I feel like we've almost covered that off in this, but let's try to keep going through the project list.
Okay, so that remains high priority and it's ongoing. Improved road signage at park entrance. Can someone remind me what exactly that was about? Yes?
I believe it was the wayfinding program at that point hadn't had a sign directing people to this mobile park, and there was a real estate sign that was kind of in the way, and we had discussed that we wanted signage to direct people to the park at the park entrance.
Off
So I
Loggers
believe-
Lane.
Yeah, I believe that's been taken care of by the wayfinding program.
Yeah?
It has
The red pedestrian signs do direct people to the park. It is signed on the wayfinder. There isn't a park entrance sign. that's probably going to be expensive. Those wayfinding signs are not cheap.
Do we have to go with the wayfinding sign, or could we just go with like a highways type metal sign that says Smoke Bluffs Park?
Our preference is to go with a consistent theme through. What we have is 18 different protocols right now. We'd rather not make it 19. If we could look into it, but those signs are not inexpensive, unfortunately.
We've got a brand, you know, we must maintain our brand.
It's brand new. So improved road signage at park entrance, it was a high priority. Has the road signage been improved already? That real estate sign is gone, or yes?
I believe there's from what I've seen, there's references directing, like on the latest phase of the wayfinding, there are references to Smoke Bluff Park.
Okay,
Just downtown there are, yeah.
but nothing at the park entrance.
No, I think we need a definite two-hander sign indicating Smoke Bluff Park. There's lots of signs telling you about real estate, lots of signs telling you about the climbing tower fair. But Smoke Bluff Park is not there.
That surprises me.
I
I've just never noticed that it's not there.
That you need a sign at the park entrance.
Sorry?
I wholeheartedly agree we would need a sign at the park entrance.
I thought it said climber's entrance or something.
I thought that there was a sign that was about this large, saying so, but it as you see it as you approach from the north on Loggers Lane, there isn't a sign coming from the other direction, and I can't swear that it's actually still there because it's a very narrow strip that's right there. But there used to be, a sign. It was about this size. Said Smoke Bluff Park next right.
I think it's still there. It's fairly innocuous.
It is quite innocuous, and there's nothing coming the other direction.
Correct.
Yeah.
Gary, I'm assuming we would be visioning something like what we've got in Junction Park and Stan Clark Park. It's like a sign that is massive.
That's our
and
standard
impressive.
park sign.
Okay.
There's one at Brennan. There might be
Oh,
one.
like McNaughton Park. It's like 2 wooden posts with a green sign in it, naming the park.
That's an older one, but of that.
But something
size.
like that. Okay.
I just found it on
That's-
Google Street.
Is that
It's
the
tiny.
old, is that the old
It
one?
might be the old one, yeah.
That doesn't look like the new entrance.
It is.
Because I think it's blue and white in my mind.
You're right.
That's not the
No,
new
no,
entrance.
my apologies. It's a tiny little.
When you're in
Oh,
Loggers
not,
Lane.
not on Loggers Lane. Okay,
When
sorry.
you're in Loggers Lane, you'll find the park.
Right.
Okay,
Coming
so,
I think maintaining that as a high priority, but I think we should, instead of saying improve roads, I think we should add a wayfinding sign at the entrance to Smoke Bluffs Park. I think that should be what it's called.
Can you clarify Highway 99? Because I got confused. I thought it was Loggers Lane you guys were talking about.
That is what we're talking about, isn't it?
Junction.
Oh, okay, 'cause at the junction of Loggers Lane and the highway.
No, at the park entrance at Loggers
Oh, the
Lane.
park entrance
For the
is very
parking lot.
clear, no?
It doesn't say.
I'm talking about if I'm coming from Vancouver,
It's a little.
there's no sign indicating where Smoke Bluff Park is at the turn off to Loggers Lane.
At the turn off to Loggers Lane off the highway. No, there's nothing there.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay. I think,
And
That's
huge
another
absence,
issue.
I think.
yeah. That's highways though at that point.
Is it?
And then it-
Yeah, I don't think the district has any purview over signage within the highway.
We
You
have
you have
limited-
to,
We have limited sway.
I'm
yeah.
talking more like Rose Park, a sign
Yeah.
That's where I'm talking indicating the Smoke Bluff Park direction. Because right now, if you're coming from Vancouver and you're a stranger, there's no way you can find Smoke Bluff Park off that way. Signage wise.
Eric?
So the topic of wayfinding and completing the wayfinding signage program has come up with council, and it came up with the last council too. This has been a few years in the making. They are expensive, as Gary has pointed out. But I've made a note here because you're not the only constituency group out there with interests in the completion of the wayfinding signage program. Another category of stakeholders are events, Fall Fair, Squamish Days, Railway Heritage Park, these sorts of things. They're still outstanding in the wayfinding sign. So I just made a note, and as this topic comes up in our budget discussions, I'll make sure that the Smoke Bluffs Park Committee's interest in wayfinding signage is addressed. We'll leave it at that, since we won't be meeting till spring.
Okay.
So it'll be part of that budget discussion, and you're just one of the constituencies interested in what we do in future with the completion of wayfinding signage.
Mike?
And I do have a question about this. This is a greater general question in regards to the park and what's steering me into a later part of the meeting for park. I don't understand as a municipal park what the mandate of a municipal park is. If it's here to serve people from Vancouver, or if it's here to serve people from Squamish. So that's, I think when I was asking for a carrying capacity, perhaps I'm more trying to understand who is the park for, and perhaps Gary can answer that, or council can answer that.
One of the, I just wanted to direct you, a few years ago we put together the management plan. Have you had a chance to read through? So yeah, so that introductory paragraph kind of talks about kind of like why it was set up and like the history with regards to climbers and the importance and I think if I read over the bylaw today actually, and the bylaw, one of the items on the very beginning of the bylaw is that the purpose of setting it up was as a climbers park.
And I understand that.
Oh,
Climbers from Squamish or climbers from
it doesn't.
the world. And as a municipal park, I'm asking Gary or members of council, what is a municipal park here to serve? The municipality or tourists? I personally would, as a resident, I would like to see it serve residents of Squamish first and foremost. But maybe that's a bias. But I'm sure there's actually policy around what a municipal park is for.
I think it can effectively serve both. A lot of the people that got the park formed, we met at the FNBC building, 15 years ago to approach council. So some of us were actually out of towners at that time and have since moved here. So I really see the park as being for everybody, for visitors from all around the world to locals.
There's many ways to see it. I'm just wondering, like, what's the hard line? What is the municipal rule on what a park is here to serve? We all have different feelings, and they're all valid. But I'm sure there's also actually a hard and fast something written down.
I bet you there isn't.
Is for.
I doubt that there is, yeah.
Because you could easily make the argument that the municipal park is for the residents or for the people who live in Squamish, but we all benefit substantially from the tourism that it draws. Right? So saying one actually says the other. Right?
And Smoke Bluff Park is slightly different than your regular neighborhood park that you might find. It's a distinct, and it's managed very differently. So we really shouldn't try and say, this park should be like, Stan Clark Park downtown or the little neighborhood parks. So I think maybe we should leave that discussion for later and just muscle through our list.
Okay. So improve road signage at park entrance. We'll leave it as high. And we'll just let Councillor Anderson take care of it for us. Okay, let's just carry on with the capital projects priorities list down to the moderate priority, finalize in addition to the loop trail to extend Smoke Bluff Summit. So that's the loop trail extension at the north or east end of the park. So keep that as moderate and then kind of join it with the discussion of the other one, the east side trail. Okay. Down to the short-term low priority trail improvements, loop trail to One Tube. It's a very underutilized crag, and if you've ever climbed at One Tube, it's super fun. And it's a little bit out of the way too, so it kind of takes some of the pressure off some of those kind of closer crags. I'd definitely be in favor of improving the trail to One Tube. Right now it's low priority, but Brian?
From a trail perspective, it's pretty low-hanging fruit. It's not a difficult trail.
It's short too.
It's short. It's easily fairly simple to do. So, yeah,
there's some moderate graded climbs there and some low grade climbs, some classics too.
Yeah, we could probably get a crag work group in there to generate some interest in the climb.
Okay.
Do you want to jump that up to moderate then from low?
Yeah, because it's
In terms of its priority?
Yeah, it's an extension and it's a priority.
Why don't we bump that up?
Yeah, let's make it moderate.
There's an extension to the One Tube crag just basically on contour farther around there that's been kind of partially cleaned. If we started directing some traffic more towards that zone, it might generate some more interest.
As you know, crags come and go, but sometimes they stay.
Mm-hmm.
Like Crack Rock was neglected for many years until volunteer did a fantastic job of cleaning it up, and now it's pretty well a permanent fixture.
Yeah, the additional veg management around the base of the crags is huge for bringing people and keeping them there.
Yeah, that's part of the management plan.
The next one, trail improvements, Boulder Gully to 1-2 Link Trail, if located on private or crown land, get necessary approvals. I think Helen and I did GPS that one. It's definitely not on this map, but we did GPS it. I think it's a trials trail actually, or mostly a trials trail.
Can you tell me where it is?
Yeah, it goes, I think it's,
Well,
it goes
there's 1-2 there.
right next to the Boulder extraction yard, what do we call that thing, the rock quarry.
Oh, that's Park Avenue.
Yeah, Park Avenue, yeah. So should we make that a hiking trail?
Go ahead. I wouldn't suggest a whole bunch of capital improvements and stairs and things because they won't last.
Yeah, there might be a portion, like you start next to Car Park Crag and then Park Avenue kind of loops around. There might be a kind of a steeper trail that links, like almost cuts off the switchback of the Trials Bike Trail.
Well, there's the two, you're talking about right coming out of the car park? So right coming out of the car park, you can either head straight up the rock,
Yeah,
or you can wrap around, basically onto close to the driveway and the quarry,
yeah,
and then come back up those rocks to the backside.
yeah. So if
And
you
those two
cut that
trails come
switchback
together.
off, there's kind of, it looks like there's like a subtle, seldom used Trials Trail, or maybe it's just a waterfall or like a climber's access trail or
It's a
something.
trail that we use quite often, but you just can't tell because it's all rock.
Okay. I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but
Yeah, it may or may not be, I'm not sure.
I'm not familiar with the Boulder Gully to 1-2 link. Maybe obviously. Brian, do you know?
I haven't looked at it for years, but I know it's there. But it'll be in sad state of repair.
If it's, does it finish right in the parking lot, right by the P on the map there? I'm just gonna look at Trail Forks, but is that what we're talking
Trail
about?
folks will not name that, put the correct name on
No,
it.
they probably won't.
They've read
I did GPS that trail, so we do have it in our latest files, and I'll put that on the map too, and for you, Spencer, and when I give you all the trails, and you can just mark up Park Avenue or name it or whatever, and then we can make sure that we're talking about the same thing with this link up.
And is that west the one that basically finishes right at the P in the parking lot, is that correct? And it sort of briefly looks like it's outside of the park, and then it popped in?
I thought that's Labor of Love, the one that finishes by the P.
It's definitely
Yeah,
one of these
that
peach
is
trails
right
that
on,
ends up
yeah.
over here, because yeah, 1-2 is right here. Do you see 1-2 on there? It's right.
Yeah, I did.
So I think that there's a trail that links from the P like straight uphill
Yeah.
towards that Trials Trail.
And that's Park Avenue.
That's Park Avenue?
Park Avenue ends up cutting into Labor of Love, and the lower piece is Dope Slope.
Isn't there a bunch of climbers access trails to get up towards Boulder Gully and that up this way? Yeah.
Yeah, there are.
I don't think those are used by Trials bikes. I think it's, I mean,
Definitely not over.
yeah,
I know these guys have tried anything, but it's pretty rough.
There's some bouldering in there too.
right from here straight up this way.
No, we don't go through there. I've hiked through there.
Yeah.
Looking for a line, but I'll never cut a line.
It's
through
quite,
there.
it's like talus in places and stuff.
And blocks of granite the
Yeah.
size of the
Yeah.
stable.
Yeah. Sarah?
Could I suggest we drop that one completely? The reason being, just in my head, is that if there's, like, 1-2 wall is definitely not a neat and cool, right? Just from the first part. So if there's one way to get there, great. But if there's a really difficult way to get there that's going to involve extra trails, potential, like, trespasses and all sorts of other stuff, consultation, it just seems like a lot of energy for that kind of dumpy crag.
And that whole piece of trail that you're talking about is all on a minimum tenure.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
screwed.
It's just better
You
not.
cannot go near minimum tenure. You will never get permission to be there.
Sarah's right on this one.
We don't have to, but I just, if there's one way to get there, I'm sure people are gonna choose the easiest way. And if there's so many ways to get there, and climbers are fit and active, and they don't need 2 ways to get to that.
Yeah, there's definitely more than one way to get to 1-2 right now. It's the most direct route would be up that Lumberland Climbers Access Trail, I suppose. Get up to the Loop Trail and then straight over to 1-2.
Or, no, I go around the other.
Or the longer way would be take the Loop Trail around. Yeah.
So we can drop that one then?
It's already low. I'm not in favor of dropping it, just because, I mean, if 1-2 does all of a sudden become super popular and we want maybe a more direct route,
I would suggest you guys put it on the long-term, 6 to 20 years.
Yes, that's a good idea. So move to long-term.
In the meantime, I'll check out one, two, for you and get the report back to you.
Okay.
Tell you what the state of it is and some of it.
There's a bunch of salal growing out of the cracks, I know that. Okay, medium-term priorities, resurface parking lot with appropriate surface.
If we're dealing with 2020, that's in the 4 to 6 year.
Mhm.
Do we just ignore that for tonight?
Yeah, we're just talking about short-term priorities for now, right? Yeah. So it's,
That's in the medium term, 4 to 6 years.
yeah, do we want to just leave it there?
Yeah.
Or do we want to move it up, I guess would be the only thing we need to decide tonight. Chrissy?
So we haven't really identified a lot of things for the district to go to council with for budget. So they've got it on this list at the bottom with the asphalt grindings and with an estimate of about 12 grand. So if we were to make that a high priority on our list, am I correct in saying that district could then bring it to council as one of our capital? Or would it be an operational?
We're pretty much guaranteed to have the 20 plus the 5. So what we're trying to do is, what do you want us to do with that 20 plus 5? If there are other asks to gold plate the parking lot or something, we can go back to council and ask for those too. But what we're looking for is, what do you want us to do with the 25? And if you've got other stuff you want us to go ask council for, we'll go ask that too.
Does that 25 include the maintenance budget for the contractor?
I think it's 20.
It's 20, there's 24 for the maintenance, and that includes what?
That would include the asphalt grindings.
That-
Resurfacing the
that-
parking
that-
lot.
Grinders are separate.
That'd be something
Completely
completely
separate.
separate. Then that 24,000 is the maintenance, what happens in the park now, plus the GFL coming in there, and then we also have security for the bottom gate too.
That's this one here.
There's 24,000 plus 5. It's actually 29. That's what we're looking to sort tonight, is how do you want us to spend that next year? And if you want us to go to council and ask for something particular, pave the parking lot, build an airport, build a heliport, we'll do that too.
But John is in that 20,
John's,
John's in that, or you should say the contractor's in that 24.
it's in that
So
24 as well.
Yeah, that's all tied together.
Yeah, and he easily spent his 24 this year on just small maintenance projects and various other things. So if we take the $12,000 district estimate out of that, then we might not get some of the usual maintenance work that he does.
Am I missing something here? This $20,000 for the parking lot strikes me as more of a capital project. Capital ask, no?
Well, it's one of those, it's a bit of maintenance, it's a bit of a capital improvement, so if you want to pave it, that's a deliberate capital ask.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but if that's the direction from the committee, we carry that to council.
Was there an estimate done on resurfacing it, just as gravel?
No.
It would be in that same price range.
Like this, similar to the 20,000 or this?
12,000. The idea was that the one section to the north, the new part, that would be left alone and we would just do the south part. That was just 12,000.
So what about just taking the district's grader to it more frequently rather than completely resurfacing it?
I don't think that can be done. We'd have to remove the existing pavement that's there before we could grade it, and I don't think there's enough material under there that the grader, he's just going to pull nuggets and boulders out of there. So we'd have to add more materials for that.
Sometimes it's best not to pick the scab.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys do regular surface repair of the potholes in there, or?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, we do, sometimes night shift might go in if they're not busy and just drop some material in the holes, but it gets washed out throughout the the proper way to do it would be to remove the existing pavement that's there, resurface it. And if you use this, this kind of material, it does pack really well.
That's that road base.
Yeah, as a road
Yeah.
base, yeah. And it actually keeps the dust down too. It's good dust control. So.
Yeah.
Could we put it as moderate?
I feel like we should put it as moderate. Yeah, it's a big ticket item that would take a lot away from our other maintenance priorities.
And keep it in the 4 to 6?
It's already moderate, isn't
Resurface parking lots in medium term 4 to 6. Yeah, it's still moderate. So basically, we're ticking that off the list as being
it?
discussed, but not moving it into the high priority at this point. Have you guys heard complaints from people about the Smoke Bluffs parking lot surface? Is it bugging people? Does it bug you guys? I hardly ever use it because I live up there, so it's kind of hard for me to gauge.
We try to watch, the potholes as they come in. They're not there all the time. though.
Yeah, you guys are probably just complaint driven, basically. If
More,
someone's
yeah.
smashing their bumper, you get lots of complaints, you might go there
We
and do
don't
it.
want that to happen. We try to get that before that happens.
Okay, well, yeah, maybe just internally we can all keep an eye on it, and if it starts to get really bad, we can kind of bring it forward in the future. But just keep it as where it is then, for now.
Yeah, if there are issues with the parking lot, let us know. We can periodically go in, and we do try and hit most of our gravel at least a couple of times a year.
Yeah.
Just sometimes it's weather dependent.
And sometimes, oh gosh, what's the name of the asphalt company that's here in town? They're looking for places to pile that stuff, and then they'll pack it flat.
We would still, to do that, you need to remove the existing
Oh,
material on top.
okay.
The existing pavement that's there,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
well old now, yeah.
Keeping that at the side.
That's a big job.
Okay, install washrooms at main parking lot. Could be composting toilets. So right now there's 1 or 2 porta potties,
There's 2 porta potties.
2 porta potties in the summer, and then
It'd be one at the end of September.
it drops down to 1 for the off season.
This would be a distinct capital ask because the cost is significant.
Mhm.
And this is not going to happen with $24,000.
Yeah. Let's carry on with this one, but I know we did talk up last year about adding another washroom up at Tunnel Rock there.
Yeah.
So I think we should add that one if it's not in here already somewhere. But for this one here, main parking lot, are we comfortable with the current state of the porta potties, or do we really want to try and ask the district to add a nice fancy washroom or
I'm in favor of asking for that. This park is not a small deal. This is a world-class park. It really is. We all know that, even though I'm saying, is it for residents or tourists? Is it a world-class park, or are we just going to put people in a couple of construction toilets? Pretty hokey right now. If we're the world-class outdoor town that we're pretending we are, or that we are, we should have an awesome facility there. We could even have an outdoor shower door inside, place to brush your teeth, good toilets. Like, we need something awesome. Let's ask for it. Let's ask for it.
Do we have water lines and sewer lines along
So
there?
you're not
That's the
thinking
problem.
like the composting toilet on the Smoke Bluffs Park side. You're thinking something totally different.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hub for the most awesome park
The
ever.
sewer line and the water line would have to go all the way down to Adventure Center and hook into there. Because everything, I think that sewer line that runs along there is a force main, so you can't hook into that. You have to go
You
You
get-
have to
down,
parallel it to the
hook
junction.
back into the system, and then it's put in that way.
Chrissy?
Is there the potential for like any future development down like in the Ravens Plateau area where those systems will be upgraded, or is that just kind of like too far off the line for?
Ravens Plateau.
Or
Like
like
Finch
I don't,
Drive.
yeah, Finch Drive kind of area, like any of the developments in there that would require upgrades from there, or no, probably not.
No, those will all feed into that force main.
Okay.
You guys just
Yes.
upgraded that a couple years ago or a year ago or
It's
something,
pushing
right?
north, isn't it?
Yeah, it's,
To the north of
that's
there,
a force
yeah.
main that runs directly up Loggers Lane, so it would have to be, you'd have to go take that sewer
One
and
way or the
water
other.
down to Pavilion, or down to the Adventure Center, hook into their system, right, and then it would be going to the main that way, so.
Mike?
Again, I'm new, I should probably already have this conversation. What if we were to keep the current parking lot, the overflow parking lot, and not have porta toilets, and where the rope runner course is becomes the main climbers parking lot, and there'd be an amazing facility with washrooms and stuff there, just a thought.
Want to bring Rope Runner in to see what?
No,
they
rope
think?
runner can stay there, they're there, and they're, that's awesome, like, they're not taking that much of the parking lot. but just a thought that maybe that's the adventure hub that has the facilities. I mean, or that's the spot where people come into Squamish and wash their face and clean up from camping and have a nice clean. It is an issue, and that might be an awesome spot for it, like a really good bathroom center and park there and then overflow into the farmers park.
I think when at the park eventually extends, hopefully, down to the Mount Blind Channel, I think that would be a great eventuality. First have to resolve some land issues. Yeah.
I think there are really two other conversations going on, or that will happen, that we're linking up to here. One is the topic of adventure hubs and trailhead facilities. And your conversation here on that, I think, needs to be linked to it. But we have, as we can read in the Sheep newspaper this week, the council is really struggling with trailhead facilities and adventure hub topics. And so let's be mindful that the Smoke Plus Park should be part of that discussion. And I can encourage my colleagues to consider that. The other topic is planning for the parking lot across from the Adventure Centre, which has really 3 compartments. 2 are held by leases, and the other one is a public parking area, a park and ride if you like. So the planning for that area, let's consider that a separate topic. It involves other stakeholders and moving parts, and we'll just keep that in mind also. But I think that your conversation regarding facilities in the parking lot perhaps does need to tie into the Adventure Hub conversation that's ongoing, not only on Dowd Drive, but elsewhere in the community.
Mike, I definitely agree with you that we need something better than porta potties at the park entrance. I've thought that for a long time, and I definitely think it's a good idea. But every time we come here, we hear it's too expensive. But I feel like we should at least maybe try and escalate that a little bit. There's right now GFL is being paid $3,000 approximately a year when you add these 2 items up to maintain the porta potties. That's for all the porta potties in the entire park, right? Or that's not just for?
That's for the 2.
Just for the 2 at the parking lot? Mm-hmm. The other ones are just pits. They don't get
Yeah,
maintained.
they never put in that other one we thought of.
Yeah, that never went in.
And the one at Crack Rock, is that one operational? And then the one at Octopus Garden?
Octopus Garden is just horrible.
Oh yeah?
It's disgusting in there, you can't even set foot.
It's quite old now.
And then the other one was blocked off by BC Hydro all summer.
Oh, okay.
So then that became, it's all around, yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's some maintenance required there for sure. I don't know who takes care of that, or.
Sorry, the maintenance round.
The outhouses.
At the one area that you were speaking of there.
Octopus's Garden is one of
That's the
them.
one I was too.
And then, oh yeah, and there's one by Craig X that's kind of, it's got a picture of a man's face on it. Nice.
Yeah, that one. Crack Rock, right?
Yeah, near Crack Rock.
I can probably clarify that, those 2. The original one coming up near Crack Rock is historic. I don't think anybody really uses it anymore. That used to be the only toilets. However, the one at Octopus Garden was put in possibly a decade ago by a competent contractor, Chris McCrum, who's since deceased now. The intent was that the housing would be eventually reused. That toilet would be filled in eventually, because it's a simple pit toilet. And the housing moved to one side and a new toilet down, but I don't think you can do that anymore in parks.
No, it needs a container.
Yeah, it needs to be involved now, so I don't know, stop
Pit
that
toilets, we cannot get approval for it.
No.
If they're existing, can be maintained.
It is a good
VCH
situation.
have, it's a flat no. It has to go into a sealed unit, so you have to be able to get a truck to it.
Or be composted.
Still needs maintenance.
Composting requires a line. It's a urine diversion, so the liquid runs to sanitary, the solid is composted. So you've got to run a sewer line for the
How is this being resolved in backcountry areas of the world? I mean,
backcountry. They will allow vault toilets to be constructed.
And those
are
like
portions of the park considered backcountry? Because it's
No.
what is backcountry? What's the district's definition?
Outside of the district.
Chrissy?
Brian, can you clarify what the system in Marin, so the UD system we've got at Marin is? 'Cause it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's It is a true UDT. The one in Bluff Park was a compromise. The urine was actually tapped straight into the sewer system because we had an existing sewer line nearby. The solids were taken backwards into a concrete containment, which is more or less a horizontal vault, where theoretically the composting takes place. In the cycle, the first pile, the first year, so to speak, is right back to the rear of the containment, and a new pile starts. It's actually a much longer cycle than that. And to my knowledge, that toilet has still not been emptied, so the composting is working to a fair degree, but it's not working as it was designed by the original toilet people. The one we installed, we being SAS and Parks put into Muir Park, is a true UDT composting toilet, in as much as the solids are taken back onto ground, onto land, not onto our concrete, where composting is truly taking place. It is working quite well. The urine goes straight into a small septic field underneath the toilet, so there's no requirement for plumbing. So, but these are starting to show up all over the place, and they're fairly successful. But as Gary points out, there's other municipal rules that wouldn't work, for example, down at the parking lot.
So Murin is outside of the district, is that why it was able to get?
BC Park.
It's in BC Park, so
But we have to jump through the hoops to install it and get it cleared and so on.
it sounds like something like that would work up at Octopus Garden. Maybe not in the exact place, but maybe further up. There's a flat area there with some soil.
Place for it.
But if you can't dig for a septic field, then how
No, you don't really need a septic field because you're not dealing with solids. It's just the urine. The urine is essentially sterile. It's not a problem. So it just goes straight into
It's absorbed in the till.
Pardon?
It's absorbed in the till, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the solids that are the problem. So it'd be interesting to know who actually is responsible for maintaining the existing UDT toilet in Bluff Parks right now.
The one at the play park?
Our maintenance contractor.
Is that Parks? Parks Department?
No, it's done through the contractor.
Let's see the contractor.
The person that installed it.
Yep.
You don't happen to remember how much that one cost in here, do you?
Oh, I do, because we negotiated the whole thing. We paid for all of it. $15,000. But it's a single seater, so it's quite expensive. You need more than that. Well, plus garden, get by with a single seater. Yeah, they're typically, the throw-in costs basically $6,000 US, and then after that is how fancy you want to be with the housing. The one in Murin came in at just over 15. But it's been well received, no smell. Everybody likes it.
Yeah, you don't necessarily only walk past it. You just see it, that's all. It's cool.
But I'm not familiar with inside municipal boundaries what the problems might be with those. But BC Parks are keen on it.
It seems odd to not have anything in there because people are not going to go, as we know. I mean, they are going. So it'd be amazing if we could. And I'll start feeling really excited about building new trails and bringing more people into the park, and there's places for them to go to back. Like that's sort of like, let's deal with that, and then everyone come. Because right now, it's a different set of problems, which is actually I'll shut up. I got a letter from a vet too that's been experiencing a whole lot of problems at her vet clinic with animals, specifically in the park and into stuff. So it is real.
Info
on the toilet, Brian. That was actually interesting.
Is there any reason why that same model of composting toilet couldn't be installed at the entrance of the parking lot? We don't need to tie into the sewer line then?
Well, not really, because you're dealing with a paved area. There's nowhere for the urine to go, I don't think.
You have to dig down. Table.
Pardon?
You've got a water table there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're right on the water.
Yeah, I mean,
It'll never work.
I have no expertise in that. I'm just talking about backcountry.
Yeah, what about just, up 10 meters in elevation or something up towards Boulder Gully there, just in a clearing, in a new setting, or somewhere where we could install a small septic field? Might be worth investigating anyway.
It would possibly work there. There's technically no reason for that. But in the paved parking lot, absolutely not. There's no point. The same as the one up at Kids Park. So quasi, you're basically spending a lot of money for something which is not doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing it a lot from from park users and just from people around that human feces is a big problem. I think that we should make a motion to the district to install 2 of these composting toilets, one at Octopus Garden and one at the park entrance. Sarah?
I don't know if I'd agree with the number, but I'd second the motion.
I'm not sure what would cut it, or the traffic.
What's that, sir?
The traffic, one pit wouldn't work, and one pit wouldn't work for the parking lot area.
Oh, yeah.
It's way too busy.
So the one at the play park is not designed for as much traffic, or the one at Muirn's not designed for as much traffic as the one at...
We don't know, because I've asked BC Parks to provide some kind of counter to track numbers. The Muir and loop trails are coming extremely popular, but we don't actually know the numbers at this time. I've asked BC Parks to provide counters to give us some sense of traffic. So, but no, I would say Muir and traffic would be lower than Bluffs.
Chrissy?
We'd also have to compare the cost. Like if we're gonna put 2 composting toilets in at the parking lot, are those costs gonna exceed what it would cost to do the infrastructure upgrades to put a regular toilet in?
If we're looking at 2 $15,000 toilets, I think you guys had quite a higher number to install an actual washroom facility.
Orders of magnitude higher.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think even, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to suggest that because these ones can be easily serviced, it might make sense to actually have a composting toilet at like Burgers and Fries, a place where it's got a lot of people and it's close to other houses, and then so that they're in areas that can't be easily accessible.
Yeah.
I think would be perhaps better locations for composting toilets.
Yeah, except Burgers and Fries is close to the other one. That's already there. Close-ish. Close-ish.
Yeah, true.
Everything is
No,
relative, but...
I know.
No, you're right.
It's like we need 5, really. And then we do.
Gary?
Sorry.
Spencer?
Spencer was, sorry.
The one from the parking lot at the lower entrance, that one may be able to be held off until such a time as they want to redevelop that lot that sits in front of it, in which case they will need services.
The
logging yard, the logging and courier.
Darren
facility.
Doak's spot there.
Yeah, Darren's lot. But that will, I imagine, eventually get redeveloped, in which case we could possibly tie into that development. It's not going to be there forever. Just a thought, we may not, need to do this today. And that could be an amenity if we actually see if we can squeeze out of the development. As far as the rest of it, I just think rather than maybe indicating the specific type of toilet in a motion, have the district, investigate putting in, better washroom facilities within a small cost park. And it sort of ties into what you said about look at the different cost comparisons between various technologies and where they're going to go, where are the numbers to dictate how many go where.
What are the... Is there any water or sewer facilities at that shop there?
No,
There's not.
There's nothing?
there's nothing.
I can pass on that the landowners are interested in redevelopment, but it's not a short-term project, undertaking for the reason that they don't have a relocation option at this time. But it's under discussion, also with the planning department, but maybe going back a couple of years. But there's also interest in servicing and interest to monitor on the part of Darren Doak and his joint owner, monitor what's going on in the neighborhood as to servicing opportunities. So I would just caution that may not be a short-term deal. And the main issue is they don't have anywhere to move to at this time. So it may be worthwhile to continue to look at a plan A for the interim. This may be several years, but there is interest and openly declared interest to redevelop.
Okay. What does everyone think about a compost and toilet up at Octopus Garden to replace the one that's basically full?
Well, so if you happen to have the specs for the ones that you, that would be useful for us not to go fishing for.
Oh, yeah.
You can provide that, we'll talk to VCH and we'll see if we can get a budget number.
It's essentially the same as the one up here, except it's designed to work as in reality in a backcountry setting with no concrete.
Yeah, the reason I'm interested in that is if they got it there, that might give me a fighting chance to persuade VCH to allow it here. Because right up to this point, they've said no. So if I can get that, then that,
No problem.
great, thank you.
So, based on what Eric has said, maybe we should at least have the district look into potentially installing one at the entrance as well, but at a suitable location that could accommodate a small septic field that the model needs.
Yep. And we have a contractor who has already done a number of these and is up to speed on an ex-park ranger, etc., those park standards, etc.
Okay.
So we have a contractor, we'll have the source for the materials and so on.
So obviously the 2 toilets, if they're 15,000, would be more than our budget for the year.
We can always go to the moon and see what we get.
Yeah, are we,
Ask for all the ones we want, and then it's the ones from plan. If the district is 1 or 2 next year, that's amazing, and then the next year perhaps.
yeah, are we able to ask for sort of more than our current budget is? Like,
Yeah, if it's within the 29, we'll get the contractor, we'll get that work done. If it's more than that, it's a budget ask in the larger district budget. Can't make any commitments there. Perhaps talk to the gentleman in the corner. No hassle him.
okay, I'll be knocking on your door. Okay, can I make a motion to council then to install 2 compost toilets, one at Octopus Garden and one at the entrance? The size and type still to be determined, but at least look into the feasibility and the cost.
Can I, just a little bit more discussion around that? I love
Yeah.
where you're going with this, this is awesome. Should we, if we're going to ask for 2 composting toilets, should we initially ask for 2 in places that are really required the composting? And then we can keep for this next year the plastic ones for now, even though they're not awesome. And maybe we do a composting toilet at Octopus Garden and perhaps another one at Burgers and Fries, where there's kind of known issues, and it's also very close to houses down at Burgers and Fries. A lot of the residents there, including myself, are very regularly encountering problems, we'll say, down in that area.
I bet BC Hydro's contractors would appreciate if there was less human feces in the right of way also.
You talked about one for Tunnel Rock as well? Or something?
Tunnel Rock is
We
meant
talked
to
about
be,
a
I was
porta
actually
potty
gonna
up there, yeah.
expand on that. I think that's a great spot for a blue one for now, because it's easy for a truck to get in and out. So if we go blue there next year as well, if there's a blue one at Tunnel Rock, a composting at Burgers and Fries, and a composting at Octopus Gardens, we start covering the park off quite well. Like there's real facilities, like people have a good place to go now.
A truck could get to one at Burgers and Fries as well.
No.
Service it. No? My truck could get there.
Your truck's not a honey wagon.
Oh, for pumping, right? Pump truck, you could get it in, but then how do you?
If we improve the road a bit, I'm sure it could get in. You're there anyway.
Yeah, with a winch.
That's another budget item.
Would that be in
Yeah.
front of the houses there?
Down below, yeah.
Oh,
But it could be around the corner a little bit too. There are spots that would work pretty long, and I don't think the houses would. I guarantee the houses wouldn't be upset with it.
Yeah, I mean, there is the other porta potty already right there at the play park. It's not that far from Burgers and Fries, but I mean, people just
It's
want
a hotspot.
convenience.
Yeah, it
It's-
is a total hotspot down there. It's amazing. Yeah.
We've got a fair bit of ground to cover. Do you want to complete your motion and we can figure out where we're going?
Like
Would anyone like to amend the wording?
Yeah.
Location to be determined?
Ask for 2 composting toilets
2 composting toilets?
and an additional plastic one for next year.
Yeah.
There we go.
Composting? for
So the
sure,
2
or is-
composting toilets are a separate capital item to ask from the district for, and I think we can probably afford a porta potty at Tunnel Rock out of our operating budget.
Yeah, out of the current, out of the.
Next year's
out of the
operating budget.
5,000 operating.
Either the 5,000 operating or the $25,000 maintenance, whichever.
Well, see, The $24,000, a good portion of that's dedicated to our contractor.
It's 20,000, give or take.
And then we also have, we have this 1.5 porta potties that we do now. Plus there's also security that also comes to open and close that gate at the bottom.
We've got $5,000.
I think we should use one of it. I don't think it's a huge,
I don't think we can cut the 24.
I don't think so either.
I think we.
But our 5 that we have for operating, I think we should spend it on porta potty at
I
Tunnel
agree.
Rock, maybe?
We should spend
It's
it
dedicated
on
for,
toilet facility, yes.
Chrissy?
So here it says GFL is 1914 for the year for 2 porta potties, so we, like a third, might not, like, it would be another, like
Probably
another
$1,000.
$1,000, yeah.
Yeah.
So do you
It
want
could be
that,
more
Yeah,
than
yeah.
$1,000, could be
want it
$1,500.
year round there?
Do we want it year round, or do we only want it in
Season, or?
8 months a year, or
It's used year round.
6 months a year?
Probably would be used year round, because in the winter, as Kristen
Yeah,
said, there's
it's
people
about
traveling
trail
and
runners.
hiking, especially in the,
I-
just shifts where there's a lot of people on.
I think year round, yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we get that one in the budget for our 5? Does it matter today that we say we want to spend $1,000 or whatever of our 5 on?
4 left.
Pardon me?
It means you've got 4 left.
Okay, but we don't need to put it down at this point, or do we? The 5 is already allocated to us. We'll just direct the maintenance contractor to install one.
Yep.
Can I ask a question, Sue?
Yeah.
The $1,900 for GFL services, does that include the rental of the porta potty
yes, that's the,
or just servicing?
that's the rental of the unit and the once a week
And
service.
so
then
it's
at
rental and
times-
servicing in
Yeah.
the 1,900 change?
And then at times, so it can vary,
Yeah.
because we may, if it get a lot of usage, then we have to call them to come in and do an extra pump type thing.
Okay.
And there's winter fees, and there's winter premium fees, so it goes up by about $20 than what it is right now. Is on it.
Thank you.
Okay, so we don't need to talk about the porta potty at Tunnel Rock, but the district will allocate it out of our own funds. So the 2 composting toilets, we would like council to install them, basically. That would be the motion. Do we need to be specific with the locations at this point?
No. So I'm just checking with, do we need to make a motion to pass this on to council, is that?
Yeah, so what
So-
I have drafted here is that the Smoke Bluffs Park Committee recommend to council that the district of Squamish install 2 compostable toilets in locations to be determined, but that suit septic needs.
Everyone agree with the wording of the motion?
No,
No?
sorry, you want to amend the term urine diverting composting toilet. There are different types of composting toilets.
Any more discussion on that one, or someone want to motion to second? So I put forward the motion, Chrissy seconds. Now do we vote on the motion? Okay, all in favor? So it's unanimous. Everyone here? And do you like it?
Oh, no,
You don't get to vote.
I don't get to vote. I'm good. Good luck.
Okay, back on track now. So install washrooms at main parking lot. It could be compost and toilets. Right now it's medium term low. We've kind of moved that in a different direction. We've gone to council with that one. So do we need to have that one on the list at all anymore?
Move it to high till it's done with.
Short-term, 1 to 3 years high?
It already says additional washroom facilities, short term 1 to 3 years high. So that's already there.
Okay.
So let's just leave that there. I don't think we need that medium term one in the low.
I think you're right.
I think we can strike that one. Okay, long-term capital projects, 6 to 20 years, create additional access along blind channel and reopen climbs in that area. Zip Cliff Trail official connection. I mean, yeah, that's obviously a super high priority, but we have to keep it where it is, I think.
Can I suggest we add something to this?
Yeah.
We were worried about budget. Can we ask council for $10,000 more in our budget next year?
We can try.
Things get more expensive every year. Let's ask for a slightly bigger budget. We can do what will staff. Why don't we ask? They can only say no.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yes. Help me along if I'm not doing it right. So I would like to make a motion that we request to council in the district of Squamish for a budget increase for the park of $10,000 next year for 2020.
Anybody have anything to add or discuss?
I would add just a clarification question. I'm curious, if we ask for a lot now, can they dissolve our committee at some stage and say they're too big of a pain in the butt to deal with? Thanks a lot, we'll just deal with it ourselves? Is that an option for, or is this committee pretty well
I think we've been a pain in the butt for a long time. It hasn't been dissolved yet.
Like $10,000 isn't very much money. I mean, let's ask for a meeting. I'm just kidding.
I
But
just am
we
kinda
can do a lot with
curious
that.
about
I think we can do a lot with a little. And
I'm definitely not against asking for more money. I'm just wondering what the ramifications would be in terms of, if we keep asking, do we all of a sudden become a huge pain and we no longer, it erodes some of our authorities, is what I'm wondering.
Derek?
Yeah.
I'd just like to reflect on my experience with Budget 2019. Multiple meetings, very detailed discussion of line items. We just passed a motion regarding the composting toilet request, and I've made a note to myself that I'm going to offer a rationale to council based on my experience, over what I've heard here and what I've seen in the park. That rationale is partly public health, that we have some issues to deal with. But I have difficulty offering a rationale for this request.
random amount.
I think that you need to address much more specifically, considering the competition and all the other requests and line items that we will be discussing, you really need to have a solid rationale that you're offering along with that request.
I retract that.
Motion retracted. It's a good idea, though. Okay, so that's it for capital project priorities. What's the next? The maintenance priorities?
I'm sorry, can we go back to one step?
Yep.
Does the district have any information about what's happening along with those real estate like the Drank property particularly?
I think we'd have to go into closed meeting if we want to discuss
We don't
anything with
know
private lands.
that. So, because it says in the right-hand side, it says follow up with District of Squamish long-term real estate strategy. Is that our notes? That
Yes.
was, okay, that was
And
our.
it's an in-camera discussion, can't do it.
Oh, thank you.
What? Sorry to interrupt. I think where I was going with that, the money, is we clearly have a shortage. We had a brief discussion about perhaps doing some studies for the park. So I think I was thinking that maybe money could be used for that type of thing. Is this the time now to put on here somewhere, and it could be low for now, just add it to the list, that we should, in some way or another, consider it's okay. Just some kind of, Gary, you brought it up, like, maybe we'll add it next meeting, because you're not clear on the language of what a carrying capacity study is.
It's some clarity about purpose and intent,
Yeah,
because my carrying capacity study might not be
totally
your.
different than this one.
Say, there's no point in me going and spending some time and money on the wrong question.
Yeah.
We could add it to our maintenance or our management priority table and we say like something along the lines like investigate park usage or do a park usage study versus carrying.
And that gives us hard data too, and we then come and say, hey, we need a wonderful bathroom facility at the bottom because this is what we've learned. So if we can get some hard data to present to council, then we can start asking for those bigger things instead of just saying we feel like we want it. It seems like there's whatever it is we're asking. So some kind of data gathering next year.
Should we move on to the management priorities then at this point?
Okay.
If we're talking about something like that. So where do you think that should fit in? That'd be page 7 of the package. I mean, part of a carrying capacity study, I think, would be to determine kind of the current usage rates. I don't know how much information there is out there about how many people actually use the park. Loop trail sensors to see how many people are actually using the trail, and maybe at the entrance as well, see how many cars are coming and going. Be kind of a first step towards determining what the carrying capacity might be compared to what it is currently.
There is a line in the medium term, 4 to 6 years, that touches on a portion of it. That could be something that falls out of a study like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we might want to roll that into it and throw it in the table somewhere, rather than having this one as a standalone item.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about would require district resources and likely motion to council to direct staff to do something like this. It wouldn't be something that we'd be able to cover from our operating or our maintenance budget, so.
But the committee would have to support the ask.
Yeah. I think we need a bit more time to formalize what exactly that is.
Yeah, and we'll come up with something for the next meeting for the group.
Okay, so do you want to move that up from medium term to short term management priority?
If that's where I would like to see it, yes.
And right now it's low.
I would personally put it high, but I would settle with moderate.
Anybody want to fight Spencer on the moderate or the high?
Tourism Squamish is doing extensive survey of various aspects of recreation in the district. Have they got any data that might address this?
Is that a district office or is that a?
No, tourism is a sort of it's a arm's length sort of, but they are doing some interesting stuff, so I don't know if we could piggyback off some of their information when they're finished.
Yeah.
We may be able to get some of their data to feed into ours.
Yeah, all these kind of nitty-gritty details are more for sort of who's going to be doing it rather than us trying to.
Maybe we should put it to high then, especially if there's studies happening right now, the timing might be good.
Yeah? Okay, so we'll put it up into short-term high. Eric?
A couple of observations. I happen to be a member of Tourism Squamish, wearing another hat, and I'd be happy to ask them to give consideration to Smoke Bluffs Park in any kind of data collection or surveying that they're doing. I'd also like to draw attention to the council strategic plan and the posters on the wall there. It happens that on the very bottom right-hand corner, under neighborhood connectivity and public spaces, council priority is, in general terms, to connect citizens through facilities, programs, and gathering spaces to create community. Look, the last item there. Increase year-round utilization of our multi-purpose space assets and public spaces, parks, public squares by 2022. I think that where you're at right now when moving this forward would be well received by council in light of our identified priority. And when you articulate what you'd like to do at the next meeting in spring and fine-tune what you want, what you suggest, we've got increase year-round, and an example is Rose Park. Council has discussed that Rose Park is an example of a park that's underutilized. And some of the staff have asked, well, we're not really there yet in how to measure use, so that your proposed initiative may help council in thinking about how do we measure park use? What are our objectives in making these measurements? So I think that the exercise you're discussing here would be of interest, and that you might change some wording in referring to that, and I suggest you do, is that instead of increase year-round utilization, council should consider optimizing use, because we are also talking about carrying capacity, and I think that's legitimate. So that we never thought of that maybe optimize is a better term than increase to cover all of our situations. So I'm giving general encouragement to your initiative. In addition to the inquiry we will make with Tourism Squamish, I think you should pursue this and discuss it further at the meeting. But definitely target or refer to our strategic priority there, and I think that it will be received well by council.
Okay. Would someone from Tourism Squamish potentially be able to attend?
Certainly.
Maybe our next meeting in the spring?
Either a director or staff, my guess is yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just to present sort of what they do and what services they offer, and maybe, we could convince them to spend a bit more time and effort on Smoke Bluffs Park.
Especially because they're doing things like making films in Smoke Bluffs Park to advertise the community assets. So I think that'd be timely.
Okay. How do we get them to come to the next meeting?
Through the executive director, Leslie Weeks, and she can relay that request to the board of directors.
Okay. Does someone from the district need to contact them, or should someone from
Not sure
I
what,
will.
what staff
I
would advise.
will
Okay.
for the spring meeting.
Okay. The wording there on the one that we just moved to the short term, definitely, I don't think it needs to discuss defining front country and back country zones anymore. I feel like that's maybe fallen out of fashion in our committee, but definitely want to revise the wording to be more in line with the district's priorities. Asia, could you take care of that? With the wording?
Crack at it.
Take a crack at it? Just copy and paste.
Yeah.
How would we change the wording on that? This is one that's a little bit near and dear to me because I quite
Why
like
don't you
that idea.
send me what you think?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Do we still want to develop a specific policy for race events that use the park? I'm kind of surprised we don't have anything like that yet. Is there guidance in the management plan that already would cover that off, or?
I was under the impression of getting guests who took care of that from time to time. She used to contact me when I was chair when races happened in the park, and she would ask, is this okay, etc., etc. Don't they do that anymore?
We still have.
There is a specific policy written down
It's not a policy
It's not a
necessarily,
policy.
but it's a protocol.
Guidance?
Yeah.
for the race organizers.
Yeah, they're supposed to contact special events. The special events contact us, Smoke Bluff Park Committee, to say, is this okay? So we don't want something like that grandmother thing that happened.
The Tough
years
Mudder,
ago.
yeah.
They come in dig mud pits literally, and so obviously they don't want that sort of thing. So yes, we do need to have some oversight on that. But I thought there was a protocol in place through.
Andy, is the current process working?
I think so. I mean, we do contact you and we're doing any filming or anything like that. We make sure that everything, all the I's are crossed and are dotted and the T's are crossed when they're coming into the park. So for liability reasons and that thing. So
The filming process is very carefully monitored.
It's a separate process from the events process.
The races and so on are a bit sort of iffy.
Would you want to actually change the wording from race events to competition events? Put it this way.
I think we should strike this one from the list altogether, though.
Competition is not a race event.
Yeah, it's semantics, I don't know.
No, it's one that could be.
Yeah, like is the one where hot on your heels. Is it a race or is it fun? Or there's quite a few that
I did say special events.
Yeah, special event. I think it's this one that they're talking about.
The top one.
Very top line.
When
Yeah.
you say race.
Although it sounds like the current guidance is already in place
For films, certainly.
for films, certainly, and for special events. It already seems like it's
yeah, for anything that goes on in the park, they do have to come down.
okay. So do we need that first item on the list anymore then? Okay, so strike that. Develop a debris management strategy. I think I might have even put that on there.
Was some of that guidance coming from the fire department? Yeah.
The fire smart.
So we can wait on the fire management plan that's.
The wildfire protection plan?
It's
Yeah.
actually.
Community Wildfire Protection Plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not Wildlife Protection
No.
Plan, and that's the first time I remember that. So I would suggest to keep it high, and then you can, in any communication with the fire department or the district regarding resources that may be available through the funding that's come through with that plan, you can say, we've identified it as a high priority, would you give consideration this and that? So If you keep it there as is, you can be ready to take advantage of that program and the funding that's coming on.
I would like to make sure that takes the BC Hydro right-of-ways into account, that they're managed in conjunction with that plan, and that they're specifically identified if there's a debris management strategy that takes information from the community wildfire protection plan, that the BC Hydro rights-of-way are managed to a more stringent standard than perhaps they're used to elsewhere. I don't know if that can be.
That's going to be an interesting discussion with BC Hydro.
I've discussed it with them before, and they've been amenable to it. They did all the chipping at Penny Lane in the past, and they're going to have to do it again. But they typically wouldn't do the chipping unless it was requested or if it was, known to be a.
Develop that into a written policy?
I think so. I think it should be, and there may be some wording in the management plan already about the BC Hydro rights of way that describe how it should be left.
Is the intent so that when every BC Hydro rep, new one comes, the new veg coordinator, you don't have to argue every single time? It'd be so that it's like fire smarted essentially every time the BC Hydro comes through, regardless of who's in charge.
Yeah, that'd be ideal.
Or that's what you're thinking of?
Yeah. But also for route developers and for trail maintenance and things like that, having a debris management strategy for managing the limbs and tops and things.
Most people just don't like the look of it.
You gotta hide it. But anyway, I digress. I think we should keep it as high. Is anyone? Yeah? Okay, develop a multi-use trail policy which enhances safety. Review of trail function and compatibility related to commuter traffic along the main trail, reduce conflict in the park. Develop a multi-use trail policy which enhances safety. I feel like we can address safety on the trails on an individual basis rather than trying to spend a bunch of time writing down the policies. I don't know.
I guess I have to speak for the FMCBC at this point, is that I think that the intent around some of this talk at one stage was to do with the advent of e-bikes and e-bike use and additional trails being built in the park. And something along the lines of having something, I guess they were finding in other parts of the world, like in other parts of BC, without having a set policy on e-bikes, it was potentially going to cause extra conflict in areas where, so I think that was part of, Helen's and Barry's.
I think there was, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm done.
Did this not maybe come out of as well from talk 3 years ago? Came very close to putting in an alternative mountain biking trail to the west of the existing main line.
Main line?
I'm thinking the main line that
The
comes
Hydro area?
up from the parking lot.
The main loop trail.
Up the road.
Oh, okay.
So you come up the road, and then we had talked about basically from when you just leave the parking area, you start up, there's the rock that comes down from the right-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the terminal of it, bottom terminal, and then it would snake up that right-hand side of the west fringe, and then pop in. And that was to get the mountain bike away from those two routes that were down on the other side. And
Like a commuter type mountain bike trail, not a
not a downhill mountain biking trail or aggressive or a feature. It was actually meant to get mountain bikes off of the pedestrian trail. And we had talked about that a few years ago. And I'm wondering if this came out of some of those discussions.
Chrissy?
I do think also this came up when we were doing the management plan and we were trying to address what areas of the park we thought were appropriate for mountain bikes.
It seems like the main issue here is enhancing safety. So do we need to make a policy around that? So that, if we're not around, that our legacy of focusing on safety remains when future decisions are made, or do we want to just make our trails safer? Is that the same thing, or is that two different things, or do we care about either one more?
I've lived here for almost 20 years, and personally, I've never ridden into anybody with my mountain bike. And I don't know anybody who has, for that matter. I've never heard of any dramatic mountain bike versus runner story, mountain bike versus bear, e-bike versus e-bike. People are pretty
just
smart.
like an ongoing attention to trail safety.
Yeah, I think
Just
that's
respect that little triangle that most trails have. It's usually
Share the
a
trail.
horse and a motorcycle and a mountain biker and a hiker all getting along. I think we can all get along.
What about just
Favor
keeping
about
the main loop trail, which is the main commuter trail? What about just making sure that's a huge maintenance priority? Keep it brushed out and keep it wide enough so that there's like 2 lanes, people can get around everybody. I mean, it kind of already is a main priority, but I don't know how to put more of a focus on that, brush it more often. Spencer?
It talks to the ongoing review of trail function and user compatibility. I think we do that. I suggest we scratch this.
Brian?
The considerable work went into separating bicycles and pedestrians on the main commuter trail over the years. That's worked pretty successfully. We did experiment with an alternate trail that you were talking about, and we abandoned it for some various reasons, not the least of which it goes through the Federation lands, and I'm not too sure they were keen. But I do take Sarah's point that I think we would be remiss if we don't start thinking about e-bikes. They're coming at us fast in all parks and all land management issues in the next few years. So we need to be ahead of the game on e-bikes, I think.
We're not.
Pardon?
That's too late for that.
Sorry?
We're already behind the game.
Yeah.
I know BC Parks just allowed e-bikes.
Yeah, actually, just pull up an article here. BC Parks has just allowed them in the parks.
In certain
Also,
parks
the,
though, right? Not.
And only certain class.
The U.S. Secretary of Interior in America also opened national parks to EMTVs. And British Columbia's park system also has just implemented a policy allowing Class 1 e-bikes on trails that are open to bicycles. But they restrict Class 2 and 3, and I think those are the ones with throttles on them. And that's a good distinction. Yeah, good distinction to make.
Yeah, I agree that if there is going to be a policy, there needs to be a distinction made between the classes, and yeah.
It's very important.
But that's
to
for
realize
the
it's
district to do, because the district has the off-road vehicle bylaw, which would capture anything over 500 megawatts as a motorized vehicle, and then it would fall under the existing bylaw. Which makes it really
Chrissy?
interesting because
I just
it's
wanted
not a
to know if
traffic.
Roland, has Sorka been dealing with sort of like this, the increase in e-bikes and the like change in infrastructure or policies?
Roland, do you want to come and sit down here so at least you can speak into the mic if needed?
Sure, I don't know a lot to add on that. We haven't made a firm stance one way or the other. It's just like you guys are discussing, the safety issues are paramount. Directional use on trails, whereas the typical mountain bike network, there's few multi-direction trails versus the climb trails versus descents, and so it's just kind of steering traffic away from going up stuff where you're going to end up with a collision, right? Apart from that, yeah, we're kind of sitting on the sidelines going, how's this all unfolding? I was more one of the advocates for let's get ahead of this, much like you're saying. Let's develop policy to, kind of just get ahead of it. But the group as a whole decided that let's just kind of embrace what's happening and work as best as we can with it.
Because nothing bad is sort of happening just yet. Everyone's kind of getting along still. As soon as there starts to be conflicts, then we're going to have to try and do something.
For the most part, yeah. I think one of my biggest concerns from a trail maintenance perspective, just having that as part of my role, was the increased traffic. Well, Squamish, and I guess you guys are dealing with it in the park just in general too. There's just so much increased traffic on trails, whether it's with a motor or without, that you're feeling the growing pains of that, right? Needing more facilities for washrooms. We're, like the argument that somebody's going to do 7 laps of Half Nelson in a day. Well, versus now versus even 5 years ago, it doesn't matter if somebody's on an e-bike or not. It's just the volume's picked up so greatly that we're just trying to keep up with the general maintenance. So I don't think it really adds to anything significantly.
As far as the multi-use trail policy goes, maybe, this might open up a can of worms to start fights, but what if trails were sort of classified as use primary, mountain bike primary, hiking primary, trials primary? I know they do something like that on the North Shore, when other uses are discouraged on those trails. Does anybody have any comments on that? Gary?
Yeah, that's down a rabbit hole.
Mhm.
It is 8:20 and I'm sort of 8. It's a huge issue. We could spend another hour on this. We are 45 minutes behind schedule. We need to keep moving through. I'm sorry, but we need to keep moving through.
Okay.
The agenda.
Maybe we should just put that as another agenda item then, so that it gets focused on. It sounds like, I don't know, am I wrong? Do we want to talk about this more?
Should we drop it to moderate and observe and discuss, or,
Yeah,
I'd be
I'd be
good for
fair
that.
with that.
like Sorka's done, just
Yeah, like
stand
you
by,
say,
pay
yeah.
attention, gather information?
Yeah, I'd be happy to volunteer to look into what FMCBC is doing in some of the other parks, just to see
Mhm.
what their take on is. Just come back with a little, if you're gonna come back with something, maybe I'll come back with a little something about policies that I've been finding, just so you guys we have a starting point for discussion. Not that I know anything about it currently, but it'd be interesting to look into.
I think the province has made a stand on it. I don't think it's an unreasonable stand. And I think if we start to veer too far away from some of the generally accepted practices, we're going to be creating bigger problems for ourselves trying to enforce them.
Yeah, they're unenforceable except by community buy-in, basically, just
Well, if we maintain the
self-enforcement.
same sort of, structure as the province has established, then everybody will know the structure no matter which piece of land they're on. If we start creating all of a sudden some unique
Bylaws.
made in Squamish bylaw
Yeah.
around the use,
It's
we are
impossible.
screwed.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Moving on to develop vegetation management plan in cooperation with BC Hydro for vegetation management under the Powerline utility rights of way. That kind of goes in with the debris management strategy. It's currently kind of on a one-off basis with BC Hydro. Like Sarah says, there's a lot of turnover over there, and having something written down that we could provide with them to have on hand when they do maintenance in the park, I think would be beneficial. There's already some wording in the management plan around that, but I think it just needs to be kind of taken one step further as a standalone document and provided to BC Hydro. But because they're only in there like once or twice every 5-6 years or something, I think I'd be fine making it still a short-term moderate. Just kind of leaving it where it is. Work with adjacent land developers to create neighborhood connectivity, ongoing, moderate priority.
Should we consider moving that to high if things start moving forward and there's a bridge being put in, just to make sure that that's at our forefront? And making an ask of them, perhaps for washroom facilities, and just put a bit of heat on it.
Yeah, I feel like
Just ask for it.
that's kind of just what we do though.
It is what we do.
Yeah.
Staff always brings it to us when there's something coming up around the boundaries. We take a look at Red Point, I'm not sure that this even needs to be here.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Eric?
Yes, I just wanted to bring to attention the item under contractor suggestions on the large sheet, 1, 2, 3, 4 down, that a subcommittee tasked to overview Red Bridge plans with planning staff and finalize the trail connections with Trailhead Kiosk can begin immediately volunteer. I see that there's no district notes on this one here and no notes under Smoke Bluffs plan alignment, but I suggest that this is where it fits. Work with adjacent land developers. And I'd just like to highlight that I think this is a good idea and that we can ask staff for advice on how and when that consultation with the Red Point or Red Bridge developer or what is coming forward as regards public input opportunity. And I'd like to suggest that there's a couple of things to keep in mind. Parking spots. There are a small number of visitor parking spaces that are set aside in that development, and I've just looked at the plans and I've forgotten where they are. It's going back a few years since John Harvey and I and Ron Bicho took a tour and discussed this, so I'm not fresh on where those spots are, so that is a topic to address with them. Visitor parking within their development, and also the trailhead, as John Harvey points out. I'd also like to suggest that since the land development agreement was concluded with the Red Bridge development, with Kingswood Scott Crescent, the world has changed. The new water main has gone through and delivered us a trail that had already, so there's not going to be a bunch of money needed to be spent on the Valley Cliff Trail because they just did such a super job with that water main opportunity.
The steep Hunter Trail, is that what you're talking about?
No, not the steep part, but the upper part. So that there always was a consideration, discussed just recently with the transit coordinator, that there is going to be a budget attached to trail improvements. That has been the scenario. So that the world has changed, and maybe there's some opportunity to discuss new ideas for allocation of some of that money. Anyway, but I suggest that the parking spaces and that Scott Crescent to Burgers and Fries should be discussed with them without delay. And staff can advise on that, on the opportunity for that.
I
Maybe
can
it's
advise
a
on
subcommittee,
that
but
right now. So their developer hasn't submitted a development permit. There's two phases for that Red Bridge development. The first one's the more southern part, that's adjacent to the highway, and the one that's closer to Burgers and Fries is coming in as a separate development permit. That hasn't been received by staff yet, but if and when it lands on our desk, then you bet that we are bringing it to the committee, and we'll be able to work with those guys. It's totally on our radar, as would be anything that is adjacent to the Smoke Bluffs Park.
I was reading today, like in the meeting that was this afternoon, they were discussing the landscaping, and is it? I thought I read it somewhere that the bridge would be part of phase 1. Is that true or
No?
Okay.
It's part of phase 2?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I still think it's a good idea to be involved with the siting and the planning at this point. But do we?
I think we were just assured.
Yeah, we were assured that we would be involved with the process. So maybe we don't need to add it to the list. Okay. So on that work with adjacent landowners to create neighborhood connectivity, I feel like we do that on an ongoing basis. I feel like I don't know if that needs to be necessarily on, but we can strike that one. Gary, are we not doing what you expected us to do tonight so far, is putting numbers to things?
We don't have a lot of direction.
So how can you help us focus on what you were hoping we would accomplish tonight? Should we go through the list of the contractor suggestions that have dollars attached to them? I mean, so far we've asked council for some composting toilets. The rest of the stuff we're doing on our own, and we're allocating a bit of funds for a porta potty.
Well, it would be nice if there were, within the next few minutes, if there was either anything on that the contractor has identified, or perhaps the red items on the last list, that if there were any that the committee could flag for us that we can, that raise in priority for you, and we will then consequently.
I think there's some low priority stuff, or not low priority, some low-lying fruit that we could grab off this list really quickly. For example, the crag at the north end of the parking lot requires DOS excavator for 2 hours and 2 dump trucks of road base. And the estimate's only $400 to fix up a really good training crag.
Yeah.
So that would be something that I think we could easily move to a high priority and tick it off as something accomplished.
So would that be maintenance? That'd probably be maintenance, eh?
Under maintenance?
Yeah, maintenance high priority. And that would just come out of the maintenance budget from the contractor. Is that correct? Is that what we're trying to allocate?
Yes.
Okay.
I think Gary wanted us to work on this one to start with, right?
Something off either one, yeah.
Any direction would be appreciated.
The trail and on the 11 by 17 sheet, the second one there, the trail road work in front of Neaton Cool is BC. Okay, sorry, we already addressed that one. A subcommittee task to overview Redbridge. Yes, that's been addressed. Repairing the hydro road drainage up from parking lot could be many things, and I'm not sure how to proceed. Possible water bars, setting concrete, question mark. Though 4 are needed, 1 this year. Can we just have,
I think because
when the District of Squamish brings the machine in to install the culvert, maybe they could just install some deeper water bars in there that are still bike friendly? Is that possible?
That might be the problem. I mean, I'd have to look at it a little closer, right, where I can do that. But we need to make sure that they're going to be bike friendly for all users, right? So, yeah.
Matt?
I think we just mentioned trail safety here, and there is a district note just that it needs to be engineered, and there's a $1,700 estimate on it. I think that's a high priority. It's something that on a straight run it erodes really badly, but the little mini water bars there are a bit dangerous for someone on a bike or certainly a small bike. A real problem. So some little mini bridges have been put in. It's not a great solution. I'd say this is a high priority thing to tag, and if the price tag is only $1,700, I'd say go after that. Make it
It's
a
a
high
good one.
priority.
It's quite a
Thank you.
hazardous spot now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that tight corner too with the rocks that could tumble into the bushes.
I just, that whole piece, that bottom 100 meters of trail should just be completely torn up and redesigned.
Okay, we will look at that.
We're not going
Yeah, quite dangerous.
Okay, a Smoke Bluffs Park signage overhaul is a large job, but minimally signs and posts are needed at Redbridge access and at both ends of New Summit Trail, TBD. That we can just put that as maintenance, moderate priority, I suppose.
Can we strike any signage for Summit Trail until we look at grade?
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
For Summit Trail?
Yeah.
SB Park signage overhaul. That is, I think.
Let's overhaul the entire.
Well, as
Signage.
they're required.
There is one sign that BC Hydro damaged at the top of the stairs that go from Neaton Cool down to
They're fixing it.
Frozen Fries. They're going to repair that one? Okay. And I mean, the maintenance contractor maintains signs as needed throughout the year, so I don't know if we need anything specific for that one.
Sounds like you taking care of the maps.
Yep. Is that this one subcommittee one, or sorry, where's the maps one?
Subcommittee one.
Okay.
I'd like to be involved in that subcommittee.
On the mapping?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We can probably come in at the office on a weekend or something, get Helen to come in. And,
I've got my weeks here.
perfect. Okay.
Are you talking about the red bridge or the map?
Yes.
I'm not.
Asia?
Are those maps that the contractors referencing these you are here 5 or 6 ones, are those the same as the kiosk maps? Are those different you are here?
I think it's the same.
Just the ones that go on the 6x6s, right? But make them consistent with the new kiosk map? Is that what we mean?
Oh, so they're not the
All the
same.
posts.
Yeah, at the trail junctions, and it says you are here, then it says you are here, and then it says you are here. Those ones, they're behind the plexiglass, they're getting a little manky, some of them. I don't know if we need a subcommittee for that, but I think that when the new kiosk maps get updated, maybe at the same time we should update the you are here signs at the trail junctions, 5 or 6 locations.
And it goes with the item above it. It's part of park signage. So overall, it's all kind of one and the same, I think. And as we require it, we should make sure that the signs are in good shape.
Okay, so let's allocate that $1,000 estimate to improving or replacing the signage.
As needed.
Yep.
Okay?
Give us the content on these things. We can get those things done.
Okay. Concrete picnic tables and a memorial bench has similar costs. Where do we want to put the concrete picnic tables? Or where does the maintenance contractor? Yeah.
I'm not sure about the memorial bench, but someone did bring up to me recently interest, and I'm not sure the exact location, I tried to get it for this meeting, but an interest in placing a memorial bench at a lookout in the Bluffs that doesn't have one. That was a spot important to the climber that passed away recently. And so I can get more information and bring it to the next committee meeting.
Sorry, we do have a policy on memorial benches too
Okay.
as well. And it's, I don't know where it came, but there should be no cost to the taxpayer whatsoever when we install the benches. So.
Okay.
John, with that contract, put that in, we can probably move on the memorial benches, we've got a policy on
Yeah.
that. But if there's concrete picnic tables or benches that the committee wants to identify for us to install,
There is a high priority item for maintenance, install picnic tables at Mosquito, near Play Park, and at Tunnel Rock. There already was one at the Play Park. And we talked about having one at Mosquito several times in the past.
I think Skittles a good idea.
It's kind of midway from the parking lot.
It's a popular area.
Yeah, and it's nice now that Hydro cleared all that out. There's a spot there you could sit in the sun.
Likewise, Tommy Rock, I think they're both good sites. Play Park's got enough, I think.
Yeah,
so that was concrete picnic
Yeah.
table
concrete
at
picnic tables
which
at
location?
Mosquito and Tunnel Rock.
So that's $3,000.
Yeah, they would do that for sure.
Yeah, they're 1,500, 1,800 on
And is it easy accessible to get them in there?
We have to.
Tunnel Rock you can drive there. Mosquito you can also drive there, I believe. Yeah.
Where's Mosquito?
It is. Is it not on the map? Smoke Bluff Wall on the map.
Oh, wait, wait.
Could this map please reverse so north is top?
Yeah.
Driving me nuts.
That's weird.
It's so true. That is funny. That's backwards. That makes so much sense. Yep.
It must be because when you're coming into the park and you're at the parking lot, this is exactly how it looks. So if it was flipped upside down, people get all confused. I don't know.
Yeah, it should be on the top. It's totally back.
We'll put it in the back side of the kiosk then.
Okay, so we are going to include that those two picnic tables. So that'd be actually 3,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Install bench at viewpoint above Octopus Garden. Is that the memorial bench, or is that something that we want to?
It's a regular bench.
Pardon me?
That's a regular bench.
Just a regular bench. Do we want to include that this year? It has been in the past of high priority. Do we want to install a regular bench at a viewpoint above Octopus Garden? Okay. Do we have a cost estimate for that one? That's for $1,500 for a viewpoint bench. We are starting to eat into our maintenance budget.
Mm-hmm. And where people eat, they also go to the washroom.
Could we move it to like a moderate or high priority of the other, like next year's budget? So we don't
Yeah.
forget about it? Or-
Potentially, yeah. I mean, we're already installing 2 picnic tables and a porta potty, and we've got maintenance priorities. So why don't we drop that one down?
I think we're giving priorities to Gary.
Sorry.
And Gary can start at the top and go, I got to
Yep.
here and I ran out of money.
So
So
the-
we can put
Yeah, I
every
just don't
one
want
on the
to.
list.
I don't want to
Can
add
give
to
you
the list
of
and then.
what I have so far.
Okay.
It's the work on the loop trail to 1-2.
That would be volunteer.
Could be volunteer. I prefer it to be done by machine force.
Okay, so our contractor's going to work on that, and if we can get volunteer support, that would be great.
Okay.
We will look at perhaps some improvements to the parking lot, whether or not the remilled tailings, the crag at the north end of the parking lot, repairs to the hydro access road.
Sorry, the crag at the north end of the parking lot.
The car park
What was
crag?
the job?
There's $400 to just clear out the base and make it flatter and clear some brush out of the way. It's become quite a popular crag.
Oh, I know.
Signage repair and maintenance generally, including the kiosk signs once we get the content from the subcommittee. Concrete table at Mosquito Rock and Tunnel Rock, and a bench above Octopus Garden is where I'm at right now. So that's a long list for us to get through.
And we still have to do $20,000 in maintenance as well.
So this is part of that now,
Yeah.
but there will also be ongoing maintenance for.
Yeah, with that list, I feel like we're not going to have anything left for maintenance.
Can we save some money by not running a machine into 1-2 and just putting some really good signage and some volunteer labor hours?
I think we want to let the contractor make those sorts of decisions. I don't think we want to tell people how to do their work.
I think we just had the discussion here where I believe you said you would like to see a
I'm saying
machine.
it's a trivial trail, but it still should be done by landlubbers or usual contractor by machine.
The machine you think is
And in the end,
just a more
it
natural
makes a
trail.
superior trail that would be consistent with the rest of the trails in the park.
I guess
Nothing against volunteers, I use them all the time, but
Right.
in this instance, we stick with machines.
Tell you what, before we get going on that trail, given the experience we've had with our last trail digging exercise, we'll have identifying alignment, where to, where from, and we'll identify a construction methodology. I think we learned that lesson from the last time.
Can I clarify what's going to happen with our list of what's being asked for? You're going to come up with some cost estimates, and then you're going to try and get those into the budget, and then it'll be set. And I'm just worried we don't have cost estimates for everything, so I'm not sure how we can prioritize. If tonight's the night for trying to get these finalized.
I think we just gave them
And
enough
what's the
work to
cost
do.
estimates we can
And then how do we, at some point, approve which ones of those we want to do when some are more expensive than
Start
others?
to top and work down.
Start with the highest cost one and then work down?
Sure. Lowest cost one, highest cost one. I don't think it's driven by cost. I think it's driven by which we identified early on that trail connector should be done. And as we go down through the listing of things to get done, wherever we run out of money is where it stops getting done.
I feel like we should be able to prioritize that list with some cost estimates. It's a long list, and
It won't
I'm-
fit into the budget then.
what's that?
I don't think by the time you get cost estimates and come back to us to get priority on it, which will be next spring, which is after the budget.
So it'll get into the budget because there'll be a line item for it. At that point, we then can decide whether or not we want to proceed ahead with some of this stuff, or does it have to get done as per the budget?
Well, most of these are going to fit into the 24,000. The one that I'm suggesting that we might want to push to the bottom of the priority list is the parking lot improvements. Of course, that's potentially the highest cost and probably in terms of user experience, the lowest impact. So if we work on the loop trail to 1-2, Crag at the north end of the parking lot, repairs to the hydro, signage, we've got plenty of work to get through. We then may get to the concrete tables and then the bench above Octopus Garden. I think we've got enough work, along with the general maintenance and repairs that the contractor's going to have to undertake. So if the committee's okay with that sort of general prioritisation, with the parking lot at the bottom, we'll work that sequence through the list of items.
Sounds reasonable.
I'm personally very happy with that.
Yeah. Is there anything else in the red highlighting that we want to add? We got the bench at Octopus Garden. Check outhouses functioning, maintain veg clearing, paint if needed. I mean, that's normal maintenance. I don't think that even needs to be on the list.
Neither do I.
Improve trail above play park. That's the trail past lunch break wall that goes up towards Pixie Corner. It's kind of steep and loose. There's definitely something needs to be done there, but I don't know what it is. It's going to need some surfacing. Similar to what happened on the Hunter Trail, I think, to maintain something in place there. Does anybody want to try and add that to the list of priorities we already have, or should we just drop that down one and work on that next year?
It's still got life in it.
There's tons of let's keep it as high, but just see where we get to.
Can we defer to 2021 on that particular one
Yeah,
and maintain it as high?
yeah. I mean, it's 1 to 3 years, this short term, so it doesn't have to go on the budget ask for this year. Just keep it where it is. Okay. Debris management, Penny Lane or Tunnel Rock bases and trail erosion concerns in these locations. Now that we're out of the high priorities, maybe we should skip doing the rest of this stuff and move on to some more agenda items. Does anybody want to keep running through these? The other ones are kind of still moderate priorities.
And we addressed debris management, ongoing program of machine maintenance of trails. Right?
Ongoing.
Install signage, so we're looking at, upgrading the phone. I think,
Okay.
We agree. Signage for toilets is moderate, let's move that to high. We can.
Sure.
Because that still hasn't happened in that, so people don't know where to go.
I like the no poop signs. Who put those up? Do we do those?
Yeah, those signs with the person pooping
Yeah.
and then with the bar through it. How did those get put up?
And they do it right at the spot where everybody goes.
Did you put those up?
No.
Because I had Laura emailed today saying some of them have been taken down. So I don't know if there's any more of them. I mean, they're pretty cool. People are stealing them. But I think those should get installed. I mean, it's a big deal.
Whoever did it, that's where to put them too. Right where my dog goes.
People actually taking home souvenirs.
Mm-hmm. There's a few that I think are screwed on or something that are they're harder to get off and they're still there. So if there's, I don't know who put them up, but does really no one knows?
Wasn't us.
Oh. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda item. Smoke Bluffs Park Committee consultation checklist, review and finalize. This sounds like another big, long discussion item, and it's already 8:45.
It's also something that we could just try to use when we do our next consultation with, make sure it doesn't work.
Work in progress.
Would anybody be opposed to just committee members reviewing it and sending comments to you directly? Or is that something that we should consider as a group?
No, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, so everyone can just review it and put in comments on their own? Okay.
Would we just reply all with our comments or just send it in pages?
I think just send it to me.
Perfect.
I don't do whatever you feel like.
Okay. So we're at 7:45. Kiosk map, review and finalize. I think we have decided that we're going to break off into a bit of a subcommittee for that one, so I think we can move forward with that one.
And then before we finalize it,
Who's on the
can we,
subcommittee?
That'd be myself and Sarah, and Spencer and Mike.
and would other members in the committee like to see it before we approve it? Because I feel like we should all, yeah, we all have eyes on it, yeah. Okay, so we can work on it and then everyone sees it before it goes, because we could miss it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, now we're at 8 o'clock. Deactivation of phase 2 of the East Side Trail. Staff update?
Yes. So the re of phase 2 would be east side, put it back to its natural state with materials located on site. Planting trees may work in some areas of trails as long as it has some kind of water source it can draw from for the summer months. Recommendations would be to add large woody debris and introduce native plants back onto the trail. My suggestion is at least that first 20 meters of trail, just basically plant it up like crazy, right? So the idea is that people are not going to notice as a trail, they're not going to continue on. But that first section of trail, you definitely want to hit that hard. Like literally, get some trees, native species in there as well. I mean, some of the material we may have to purchase. I kind of put it as volunteers to complete the work as advised in the last meeting. There's still some cost incurred due to purchasing plants and trees. Parks Department can look at the exact cost or whatever for that. If district staff were to go in and complete the work, the cost would be $6,500.
Wow.
So you definitely want to look at your volunteers for that.
Well, you've got a huge volunteer community ready to help.
Yeah. So my suggestion, I think you could just get enough plant material off that mountainside or whatever to move it around, some trees, that kind of thing, and just hit that first 20 meters of trail really hard.
What
So
about
it's not-
installing some barrier fencing around the area you're working on so that it's, known that this is no longer a trail and there's no access? Because no matter what you do, people are gonna just stomp all over it.
You could do that. I mean, it'd probably just get knocked down. The idea is just to make it look like there was never a trail there, is what you want to
There's probably enough large woody debris in
Yeah.
there to make
Mhm.
it
That the machine.
do.
look.
Just make it look like there's not a trail
Mhm.
there. That's what you want.
Just pile a bunch of debris.
Well, no, plant too.
And plant
Right,
stuff.
definitely plant,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And when you're done, you just kind of throw some leaves around, make it look like it's always been there, kind of thing.
So,
Now would be the time to do it, because we do have some, some weather to help the trees along a bit, so, yeah.
so how do we go about coordinating the volunteer effort with some, I guess, probably you
With us,
directing
yeah.
some traffic?
Yeah.
Was it Sorka that had
Yes,
offered
I'll
potentially to
volunteer
do
I'd say our
a couple
lead-
trail days with that or something?
Yeah, yeah. I'd say our lead volunteer on that has a broken leg right now, but we can push through and find some other ones.
Okay.
I'm also away for a couple weeks, so I won't be back till the 30th, so.
Okay.
Does Sorka have regular trail days scheduled on trails specified going forward, or is there a schedule, or?
There is, yeah. I'd need to look into that. I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I almost think it'd be better off as just a select crew of maybe a dozen people as opposed to getting
Random volunteers?
and thinking it's a typical trail maintenance day and,
Mhm.
and really needing more direction than they're worth.
Okay,
So yeah, I think we just keep it to a limited core of people interested, and we can get it done.
okay. So Andy, you're gonna consult with
I'll
Roland
be
on,
back on the
timing?
30th of September, I was for a few weeks.
okay,
So can that Andy and Roland or
Yeah.
District and
Yeah.
Sorka will coordinate something in October to,
Mhm.
yeah, okay?
thanks Roland. Okay, any more comments on that? Probably not for now.
So just so I have some clarification, are we talking about the lower section, or are we talking about phase 2 above?
Phase
Grand
2
dug?
and above, or ground dug and above, yeah.
No, the lower section.
Well, I
remember?
We agree.
Get a cup of coffee.
Okay, 2020 meeting schedule. 4 meetings, March, May, summer walkthrough in September. I believe is that the bylaws or is that the management plan that sets that's the 4 meeting times, and I think those are basically set. Is there any, I don't even know if we can change that or if it's set in bylaws or if we want to change that, but, pardon me?
I don't believe we
I
can.
can clarify, the bylaw says a minimum of 4 meetings a year, that's the phrasing of it.
I think the walkthrough should not be considered as a formal meeting. In my experience, nothing much ever gets done at that, and half the people don't show up. It should be a sort of a voluntary end of season, come out, have a beer and walk around the park. I think we should stick to a minimum of four formal meetings?
4 meetings, minimum
We've
4
got
meetings,
enough
yeah.
bloody work to do, I think the walkabout is sort of a waste of time personally.
The difficulty that we have is if more than quorum gets together, it's effectively a committee meeting, whether you like it or not, because of
Oh, it counts as a
nature of the
committee
standing
meeting, okay.
committee of council. If quorum is met out in the woods, it's a meeting.
So I'm not quite sure how you address that.
Well, it's still a minimum of 4. It doesn't say we can't have a walkthrough and another sit-down meeting.
Right, okay.
Do you want then to suggest we put in 5 official meetings, one being a walkabout, which will be very light on the agenda?
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying.
So do we want to add one between September and March? It's a fairly long distance between, yeah? Yeah, December, January? Let's put
January.
January?
Or I'm just thinking, when is your budget wrap up? I mean, this is funny for us. It seems like this is a great, huge gap for us to think
How long's
about.
a piece of string? Usually it's wrapped in some part by January. it may take until February or March to get adopted and run through the process, but it's usually, we know pretty much what's happening January, February time.
Maybe December would be good to try and steer any last minute Hail Marys that need to.
December is a
First
notoriously bad time to schedule a meeting.
December's a bad time.
Yeah.
Second week of January, maybe?
Do we want to try and get something in before the budget gets finalized though? Maybe end of November?
November?
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's going to help.
We're not going to be able to put any more input basically beyond today.
Well, we are forming the budget as we speak. Like, it's closed as far as I'm concerned. These will go in as requests, but meeting in November, and it will be too late to be putting new budget items in.
Okay. Well, in that case, with the budget not being a consideration, then January?
Yeah.
Okay.
So January, March, May, December.
January, March, May, and a summer walkthrough.
Do we have is it the second week of the month? Or should we strive to do that? Because I noticed sometimes we kind of had drop dates set and then we change them at the last minute, which is.
Yeah, it was before. It was a certain Thursday. It was
Stick with a set.
Yeah.
yeah,
Then we can plan a year in advance
Set
and there's
date
no.
or day?
set day, the second Thursday of the month, or the third, or whatever it was.
The first.
First Thursday of the month?
First Thursday of the month, it's still
Right.
fast.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the first Thursday of the month.
Okay.
I think it has been hit or miss in terms of whether staff are available, in terms of, I think there was a conflict at one stage on one Thursday, there was another event, so it has been hit and miss, but if the committee is okay with flexibility, I think that would be preferable on a staff standpoint due to the fact that these meetings are kind of staggered throughout the year. Not everyone's here, and we want to make sure that all staff that need to be here are available to be here.
So
So-
can we say that it'll be the first Thursday of the month unless
Unless,
a conflict
and
arises
that's
or something?
generally what I aim for when
Okay.
I'm trying to schedule it, but sometimes we run into these issues.
Okay, yeah, there was some scheduling with we have one or two additional meetings this year, which is why there seemed to be so much scheduling going on, but yeah, so stick with the same program, first Thursday of the month.
Yay, us.
That's the
Our-
2nd of January.
No, that doesn't work.
Actually, I'm not here the 2nd of January either.
Might be when we still.
Maybe we'll do.
Well, there's a conflict then, we'll sort that one out. Okay,
Just because you two make it doesn't mean the rest of us go for a quorum.
So, should we have, Sarah, do we need a motion that set the meeting schedule?
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
So a motion to set the meeting schedules in the first Thursday as close as possible in January, March, May, summer walkthrough in September. Not that I can make a motion, but I'm suggesting that might be the motion.
I'd like to-
someone would make.
use Gary's voice and make that motion, as if it came out of my mouth.
Yes. And a seconder, please.
Okay, Chrissy seconds.
Do we really need 5
What's that?
minutes? Do we really need 5 meetings?
We used to have 12.
Discuss 5,000.
No, Brian seems to think so.
It's a little easier to cancel a meeting than it is to find one at short notice.
I see it.
I said 4 formal meetings and the walkabout,
Yeah. Which is what we're proposing.
which is kind of optional.
Yes, and
I like the walkabouts because normally we get council members on them. Well, we get council members on the walkabout, which is actually
One
really
or
quick.
two over the years.
My question was too late to vote anyways, it's already adopted.
Yeah. Okay, status of current recommendations to council. I think there's one or two that were from the last.
Nope.
Weren't there? No?
We addressed them at the last
We
meeting.
did? Okay. Okay, and any referrals from council?
No.
Not this time? Okay. Does anybody have anything else they want to say that hasn't said already? We'll start with you, Eric, and go around the table.
Well, I'll just mention that I'm curious about how the Community Wildfire Protection Plan addresses hydro right-of-ways, so I'll volunteer to investigate that and maybe inquire with Chief Stoner.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
No, nothing like that.
Spencer?
Done.
Mike? Roland, you're not. Andy? Sue? Misha? Gary?
No, thank you.
Sarah? Brian?
Oh, I'm good.
We don't have something from the Crag Work Group on here. Do you want to, is there any
No,
updates?
I'll bring that up again.
Okay. Chrissy?
The only thing I had was that there's been some reports on one of the climbing forums that some of the fixed lines are getting old on a few crags. And I'll bring it forward to SAS to have volunteers replace it.
Is that Mank Patrol still active?
Yeah.
Very much so.
Okay. Is it still on Squamish Climbing or is it somewhere else now? Just Facebook?
Facebook, yeah.
Okay. Matt?
I'm good.
I had some notes, but I think we've addressed them all already. Yeah, okay. Can I make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Matt? Okay, sweet. Thanks everyone.